Good evening and welcome to the Select Board meeting called here on Tuesday, January 13th, 2026. Being just past 6 p.m., I do call the meeting to order. Just to note that we do have remote participation from Select Board member Silverberg. All votes tonight will be roll call votes. Select Board member Marshall's on her way, so she'll be joining us shortly. At this time, I'd ask all those that are able to please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, so first thing on the agenda is open forum. Is anybody here for open forum tonight?
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Joanne Aramini, 7 Meadow Road. I have a few comments I'd like to make relative to the November 18th Select Board meeting. First, I'd like to inform the public on what happened at the November 17th Active Transportation meeting, since it was not fully reported, nor is that meeting recorded. At this meeting, Don Byrne gave an update on B. Walt reporting that he was walking with Northborough town officials along the Route 9, Walmart, and Avalon area. And I was allowed to ask Don a question, and my question was, who designated you to do this walk? Who authorized you? Because it had never been discussed in the ATSC meeting before. He proceeded to say that he's been working on BWAL for 30 plus years, and he's been talking to them since the beginning of 2025. The conversation was immediately shut down by the chair, Ellen Google, because she didn't like where the conversation was going, and she could do that because she was the chair, she said. I was told to talk offline with Don. So my question is, what's going on here? Why was the discussion not allowed in this committee? Because BWALT is a standing agenda item. Is there business happening behind closed doors? Where's the transparency on this? And somebody needs to address his behavior. I think you all remember the January 2025 ATSC meeting where Don was asked by member Marshall to stop representing Westborough to the other towns on BWALT. And when we brought this to you guys, you had said that you would be addressing the roles and the responsibilities of the ATSC. In fact, it's one of your goals. It's not been addressed. I emailed my concerns to all of you about that November 17th meeting. And Member Marshall requested that the ATSC role and responsibilities be placed on the agenda. But here we are in January 2026, 2 months later, 3 meetings after, and it's still not on the agenda, and nothing has been addressed. This is a $25+ million project based on 2020 dollars, and it's still not considered worthy enough to be placed on the agenda. Not to mention maintenance costs associated with it. My second comment relates to the board's vote at the November 18th meeting to continue work on BWALT and Section 2 outside of the Meadow Road and the sewer plant aspect of it. The Development Committee for Transportation Projects was asked by your board to prioritize all transportation projects in relation to town resources and needs. It didn't happen. Where did the public have a voice in prioritizing and rating specific transportation projects within the whole of all the current town's transportation projects? When I asked why prioritization didn't happen, the town manager said it would be done in the Capital Expenditure Committee meeting. Well, I watched those meetings. It didn't happen there either, and it's not really within the scope of their role. So who decided that BWALT was a priority above all other town transportation projects and needs, such as complete streets and safe routes to school? And for that matter, who decided that the Milk Street corridor is now a priority transportation project? Where's the transparency and where's the public's voice? Everybody keeps mentioning the master plan as the reason for all these expensive projects. The master plan was completed in 2021 when the world was very different. The master plan had multiple pages of priorities, and there were no price tags attached to any of them. People change their priorities once they figure out how much something costs, and a good master plan accommodates changes. And I'd like to end with a question for all of you. The town voted to financially support Westborough TV. So why isn't there a requirement for all committees to be recorded? Our taxes are paying for it. You all say you want to be more transparent. You all say you want people more involved in government. Requiring the recordings is a way to put your words into action for the benefit of us, the residents. I ask you to require all committee meetings to be recorded. And I'd like to submit this so that it will be an attachment to the meeting minutes and make mention that it's there. I've done this several times before in the past. I've gone back to look at the meeting minutes. It's not mentioned at all, nor is it attached.
Thank you. Anybody else here for open forum? Hello.
Hi, good evening. I just wanted to come in quickly just to say that Thursday is the last day for nomination papers to be pulled. The signatures are due back next Tuesday. Currently, papers have been pulled for every seat. We don't have any contested races. The last day for candidates to withdraw papers will be February 5th, so we'll go to print on February 6th with the ballots. Any questions? Residents are welcome to call the town clerk's office. We're always happy to talk to them and answer any questions. So
Great,
all right,
thanks.
Thank you.
And encourage people to pull papers. It's always good to have contested races. So I would encourage folks to pull papers if they so desire. So thank you, Deb. Anybody else for open forum?
I just wanted to just advise, because I think it will come up again, the request to attach comments that are handed into the board. We've actually specifically asked that question of town council, and because it's not a document being used by the board, it certainly is filed with all of the meeting materials, but it would not be attached to minutes because it's not minutes. And so I just think that that's important that we're clear about that.
But it is saved.
It is, yeah,
Yep.
It is a public record that's saved.
Great, thank you. Okay, next on our agenda is Community Center Program Update from the Recreation and Senior and Social Services Directors. So welcome.
Hi, thank you for having us. My name is Jen Kirkland. I am the Recreation Director.
And I'm Kendra Valdetta, the Senior and Social Services Director.
We're here tonight to just give you an update of what's been happening over at the community center, some of our successes, and where and some upcoming initiatives that are coming down the line this year. So the community center, as you all know, is located at 1500 Union Street, and the recreation department is located on the second floor. The recreation department is comprised of 4 full-time staff, and then we hire and they pay for seasonal and part-time staff out of our revolving fund. Our programs are run primarily by outside vendors, our own rec staff, seasonal and part-time staff, and volunteer coaches. We offer a mix of paid-for programming as well as open play and free programs and events.
Excuse me, Jen. Are you advancing slides? Because we're not seeing them.
I will in 1 second.
Oh, okay,
I'm sorry.
You were looking up there, so I was like, that's not what
That was my little intro. I just never know how to start these, and so I just figured I'd give an
sorry.
overview. No, that's okay.
I didn't look behind
There we
you.
go.
There's nothing over there, so that's why I want to make
I'm not sure about over there, but
That's fine.
okay.
You're good.
We have it in front of us.
Perfect. So I'm going to talk a little bit now about some of the successes that we've seen over the past year. We've been in the building officially just over a year, approaching almost a year and a half. So our no school and school vacation programs continue to be our most popular. Our fitness classes, we're continuing to expand that portfolio to try to add as much of a variety as possible. Indoor pickleball lessons and free play is always popular. We've been able to expand our adult education into digital photography, Spanish lessons, adult improv, stained glass painting, smartphone essentials. We've started birthday parties as well, which have been pretty successful. We started probably at a less than ideal time, given that it's basketball season and the gym isn't always readily available. So I anticipate that those will pick up come March and beyond. We've also welcomed a number of community groups into the building to host meetings, programs, and events. So Westborough Newcomers Club, Westborough Connects, Connect Over Coffee. We had a Gold Scout Award person that came in, held an event just a couple weeks ago. We've held a bunch of public health workshops. We held a RAD training for town staff. We offer quarterly playtime toddler events coming up in March. It'll be a meet and greet with princesses. Those are always super popular. We've just been able to do so much more than we've ever been able to do given the space that we have. Open play continues to be popular as well. So we offer pickleball basically every morning from about 8 to 11 for seniors, and seniors are Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and Tuesdays and Thursdays are reserved for 18 plus. We have this open green space area that we call, it's for our playtime area where toddlers can come and play, as you can see. And we have 2 table tennis tables that people also enjoy. This is just our court schedule. It's updated as of this month, so you can kind of see where we're at here. Again, a lot of rec basketball. Do like to mention, rec basketball is an important program for us. We serve about 540 kids from pre-K all the way through high school. So we do need the gym space there. And so here's just a little bit of where we've come and how much more we've been able to offer since opening the building. We've been able to increase registrations from last year. We had 3,626 registrations in 2024. And in 2025, we had 4,754 registrations. About 1,800 of those registrations came directly from community center programming. So that's paid programming where you sign up on MyRec and you pay a fee. We were able to offer 963 programs and activities. So that's a combination of free activities and paid activities. So that stuff we're able to track pretty well. Stuff that we're still working on trying to track is that open play, open gym, open pickleball stuff. So I was able to estimate about, for the year, 2,700 participants for open play and pickleball. Much debate in my office about whether that was too low or not. I think we're working on a system of trying to get people to sign into the center. A little bit of background on that. The way I was going to do it, it just was going to be too cumbersome, I think, for people. So trying to rework that so we can have some more hard data on the people that come just to play free play, that they don't have to sign in or register for a program. And I can let Kendra talk about her senior center programs.
So most of our fitness classes are being held at the community center and the recreation department at this point. The only fitness classes that we're maintaining at the actual senior center are our Zumba classes, and that's just kind of how the schedule works. Other than that, all of our fitness classes have moved over there. I also want to mention the AARP tax preparation program will be taking place at the recreation department this year. That was just space-wise, and also because with our new Tuesday evening schedule, we are closing early on Fridays. So that gave it a home, which is really great that we were able to work that out. I do want to mention the holiday store was a really big success. So that was held at the recreation department this year. We were able to serve about 150 families, which is on par with years prior, which is great. And we were able to get all people who applied through the store. So there wasn't anybody that was rejected, which is great. And we had volunteers just about the entire time the store was open, which is great. And we had Youth Commission volunteers. We had Westborough Connects volunteers. We had Girl Scouts. We also had some staff that was able to kind of throughout town hall work and do a couple of hours at the holiday store, which is a great way for them to interface with the community. So it was really great that we were able to find a space while the library is being renovated and worked on. That was a really big bonus, and it was a big help that we had enough space to set up and also store boxes and toys and all of the supplies needed.
So these are just some opportunities and upcoming initiatives that we have for the community center. We want to continue our marketing efforts. I do find that people sometimes still don't know that we're there and what we're offering. our program coordinators work really hard on bringing new programs, and we just want to make sure that it's getting out to the community. So we are open to any and all ideas on how to continue to do that. We have some pretty big community events that are coming up. We're hosting a science night in March, and then our spring egg hunt and spring bunny will be at the community center in April. We're planning at least 2 right now adult socials, so a music bingo and a puzzle night. We want to also build our adaptive rec programs. I should have mentioned as part of our successes, we've built a pretty good adult adaptive program once a month on Thursday nights. Jordan runs Thursday Night Socials, so it's a program for adults with disabilities to come in and do a different activity. Tomorrow night's is a paint and pizza, so it's they're going to paint a canvas and get some pizza, and it's just a place for people to socialize. We've partnered with Grafton Rec to help build our adaptive rec programs for kids. They have a therapeutic rec professional over there, so we're lucky to be able to do that. And we're going to continue to collaborate with the senior center and the library. They've both been great partners this past year in terms of, like Kendra said, having her programs in our space and the library downstairs. It's been great having them there. And then extended hours. We continue to talk about how we can be accessible to the entire community. So whether that's being open even later than we already are, potentially later on Saturdays. People have also asked for early morning fitness classes. So continue to work on that and do what's feasible. And that's it. All of our stuff can be found at westborough.com. It's our social media. It's still my favorite picture.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments from the board?
Sure. Thank you, Jen, for presenting. I appreciate all the work that's gone in by both your departments. Such great programming and great to see the use of the facility. I guess one question and then one comment. If you can go to your slide with the data on it, with the bar charts and the pie charts and all those good things.
Yeah.
I just wanted to confirm the data that's in the bottom right-hand corner, the 1,862, that's representative of all 3 years, 23, 24, and 25, if I do my math correctly. Is it also correct then that the 2,700 and the 2,892 are also in regards to those full 3-year period?
No, so the 1,862 on the bottom right, those are community center paid programs that we had through 2025.
Okay, so for 23, 24, 25 comprises the 1862? Sorry,
Nope.
No, it does not.
Nope.
Okay, so then then square this for me. What's the 963 compared to the 1862?
Those are programs and activities that we ran. So if we're looking at the bar chart, I should have separated this better. So on the bar chart in 2023, we had 3,823 registrations, 3,626 registrations in 24. And then in 25, we had 4,754 registrations. Okay. Moving over to programs and activities offered, we had 395 in 23, 391 in 24, and 963 in 25.
Okay.
If that makes sense. And then moving over to the pie chart, which is sort of, you have to turn off that bar chart. This is just sort of a breakdown of where our program registrations came from. In the addition, the only addition here is the open play, because that's that's an estimate. That's why it's not in the bar chart.
Okay.
The bar chart are hard numbers that came from our MyRec system.
Gotcha.
I could print a report on that. The open play, as I was saying, we just don't have a great, so that's an estimate based on what we feel like daily and weekly averages are.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Great numbers to see the bar moving in the right direction there.
Yep.
And then I don't want to steal your thunder, but there were 2 things that I heard at the Rec Commission meeting that I don't think I heard you say tonight, but I might have been too focused on this to have heard you. One was that I don't know if you shared the recent new hire on the golf side of things.
Oh yeah. So at the golf side, we hired a new assistant golf manager. Sorry, I was focused just on the community
That's
center.
fine.
But yes.
Just thought it was a good opportunity to bring that up.
Yep. So we're excited for him.
Yeah, and then also all of the programming that you talked about, you're expecting the rec brochure to come out later this month.
Yes, end of January, beginning of February, it'll come out with all of our spring and summer. That will include everything. So this presentation and the successes and things that we have coming up are mainly are only focused on the community center. We will still run playground programs, all of our ranger sports clinics. Our ski program is going on tonight. It's just I pulled what was happening physically at the community center.
That was the request.
Yeah.
Based on the board's goals.
Yeah, no, I just thought it would be a good opportunity to share those good things.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, Patrick.
Sure.
Any other comments or questions?
Great, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you, Kendra and Jen. I'm sorry, I'm being really dense on this number as well. So I do see that you have 862 community center paid programs. Help me to understand how the 963 in 2025 squares with the 1862. What am I missing?
So, it's my fault. Paid program registrations. That 1862 number, if you look, it says about 39%
Yep.
of the 4,754 registrations. 1,800 of those registrations came directly from community center programming.
Okay.
Program.
Okay. So,
And there were 963 programs in red. Yes,
okay.
that
So
were
within the
offered.
963 programs, there were 862 participants who participated.
1,000.
1,862.
Yeah. Sorry. Did I say that wrong? Yes.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Programs, participants.
Programs, so it's like if a program. you
And
could have-
paid. And paid in
yeah,
that number.
so we had 1,800
Okay.
paid registrations.
Okay.
So the programs could be boxing. We can take
Yep.
50 people in there. Yeah, I know.
Understood.
Just
But the 963 is a combination of ones that you charge for, but also
Yes.
ones that are
Free.
other programs that
Yes.
are not.
yes,
Scheduled, but
Scheduled.
not.
yes,
yeah.
yes. You still have to sign up for, but that are free.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
that may be free. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for that clarification.
Sorry, numbers are not my thing. That's why I'm in a wreck.
So a couple things. Again, great to see the data. I love that you continue to come before here because people do watch this. They're like, oh yeah, we got that community center thing. And the fact that you're talking about adding more programs as well as being reflective on those that have been, that you've held, I think gives folks a sense of like, if they have an idea that you're open to hearing about those programs and there's opportunity for all ages. So that's great. A couple things I just want to speak to. You said sort of like, oh, we're doing great with X various things. And this is sort of a general statement about, even in our budget book, we have performance measures, but there are really no goals around them that at least are stated. And so I sort of challenge, and I think we've had this conversation before, like, it's great to say we did this against what, right? I mean, year over year we have benchmarks, right? So, okay, but I would just challenge you guys to think about that. Like, what is the, like, is it satisfaction around program, whatever the goals might be, but it's great to share numbers, but did it happen intentionally, or, which I know it is because you're doing a ton of programming, but are the activities driving toward the outcomes? That's all. That's where I'm going. So just give that some thought. Sure. I'm not setting what your goals should be. Thanks for sharing about the sign-in process. My only thought there is that when it's appropriate, and maybe that's sooner than later around the community center, but I do think we should have a sign-in process or something, and we should think about what that investment should be, because to me, there's a liability piece there, right? Liability of someone using it, they get hurt or they break something. Oh, I was never there. Like, and it's too costly to have staff be like, doing tick marks or whatever it is that you're doing. So I do think that is something that as part of forward planning, we should be looking at. On the adult social nights, I'm sorry if I've just had a long day, but my first thought went to, are we going to, we have sometimes permission to serve alcoholic beverages with, is there a plan to do like wine and beer, any sort of things around that? And not that you can't have fun without it, but.
No, yeah, we've asked actually. So my programmers ask a lot. They say, couldn't we do this? It's definitely something that has come up. I don't think I've ever run a program with alcohol, so it'd be, just making sure I'm following all the right steps, but it's definitely something we want to try to incorporate.
Okay. I mean, I think it would just, again, it's not going to be for everyone, in the spirit of kind of recreation, but also drawing people, it might be something different. And we have, I don't know what the bidding process is and what you have to do, but there are lots of local purveyors of that may be interested in coming in and doing samples or something. Question on the adaptive adult nights. Are those open to anyone, or are they exclusive to the adaptive community?
Right now,
What's the philosophy
Yeah,
around it?
exclusive to the adaptive community, but if we've talked about if numbers are low, we've luckily been getting the numbers.
Great.
We would welcome in similar to how we do Special Olympics. We, have athletes and participants and then volunteers that
Okay.
help out. So it's definitely, but our program coordinator who in the Cape, they have a really big program like this, and it's just a place for them to come and just kind of socialize together. So
Yeah, it's sort of
for
like
right now.
if the senior center were doing the Sunshine Cafe, it's a designated and specific event for people who are struggling with, and their loved ones. So I get it. Okay, thank you. Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Great, thanks. Mark, anything from your side?
Nothing from me, thanks, Ian.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
the update.
Great.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Okay, next on our agenda is Complete Streets Policy Implementation Update from our Public Works Director. Welcome, Chris.
Good evening, Chris Payant with the Department of Public Works, and I'm joined by Derek, who's also going to talk a few things here. We were asked to give an update on our role in Complete Streets, and so we'll do that. We'll start off by talking terminology. So the town has a policy, and that policy has the intent of making streets accessible to all types of users, bikes, walkers, drivers. The state has a program, and that program was set up to incentivize and encourage communities like ours to adopt policies to have complete streets. So the term complete streets is thrown around a lot. When we talk about it in town, it's a policy. We're trying to adhere to the intent that you've laid out in the policy, and we take advantage of the program by getting benefits from the state with the policy. So our policy was adopted in 2020. You designated the ATSC as the oversight for that policy. We're implementing it now, and we'll show a couple of examples of how we're doing that. The program, we're now participants in the state program, and we're participants because we adopted, in part because we adopted a policy. That was a requirement, and so we benefited from that program in really two ways since participation. One is that program helped us develop as a community a prioritization list for projects. It's not every single thing that's possible, but it's a pretty good start on giving us guidance on what the town intends to do to create complete streets. And then we also benefited from a $500,000 grant through the Complete Streets program, which will be put towards the Otis Street corridor project. So why is it necessary? So typically when we hear complete streets talked, a lot of times people are thinking about shared use paths and bike lanes, but for us, at least in the Department of Public Works, it's more specific to scenarios like this one here. This is what used to be in front of Veterans Freedom Park. You can see the crosswalk there. On one side, there's a granite curb and no curb cut. On the other side, the crosswalk empties into the driveway where cars should be driving. So we shouldn't really have pedestrians crossing a crosswalk into a driveway. There's a sign with the push button for the rapid flashing beacons. It's behind that mailbox, which is about 30 to 40 feet away. So not very convenient for a person crossing the street. So that's been addressed, but that's an example of, what it means to create a complete street that's not just for vehicles, but allows, many of the users of that crosswalk, including, high school cross-country runners and everybody else that uses that. Here's another example, just in a neighborhood. You can see the crosswalk dumps right into a granite piece of granite, which isn't ideal for pushing a stroller or anything else. And then on the other side of the screen is just, is it somewhat accessible? Yes, but is it ideal? No. And so it's been, both of those have been replaced with, appropriate ADA compliant ramps. And so Derek is going to talk a little bit about what we've done.
Good evening. It's been a while. Derek Tari, Assistant Director. Part of my responsibility with the DPW is to oversee the paving. So that's called the Chapter 90 program. That's one of our major funding sources for our paving here in the community and across the Commonwealth. How we run our DPWs is off standard operating procedures. So we have a very robust Chapter 90 SOP. And brought into that SOP is Complete Streets Prioritization Plan, along with our pavement management plan. So a lot of that documentation guides us in terms of what we're going to be doing in the community. If you look up here, you got the speed feedback sign. That's out on West Main, coming inbound by the Country Club towards the high school. That was a grant. That's part of the Complete Streets. We've done well over 60 sidewalk ramps in the community, not only associated with our Chapter 90 program for paving, but elsewhere in the community as well, not associated with our annual paving projects. The rapid flashing beacons, we probably have a total around a dozen of those in the community. So probably 24 units total. They're typically applied either in a very congested area or where the speed is of a certain miles per hour. And we just did one of those. If you've gone on West Main Street outbound, Haywood at Wheeler crosses over in that general area. That was a grant. That was very deliberate because we are paving West Main Street this year from Nurse to Grafton Town Line. And that also connects with the other Complete Streets work that we did on Eli Whitney with new ramps. We also just did at Ward's Lane. Those are all brand new in the last year and in the last month, 2 months. So we're getting ready for that paving. And that's what drove us to do some of the items listed in the prioritization plan. The sidewalks, this was something that we did this summer. Parkman, Church, Grove, at Underwood, tens of thousands of dollars, not listed in the Complete Streets. However, we have a responsibility in the policy not to forget the existing infrastructure that is already there. These sidewalks were in pretty rough shape, very bad tripping hazards, not great for mobility, and it's a lot of work in the downtown. So we probably did close to 100 panels. Just picture what a panel is when you're walking. But it gets very difficult in the downtown because these panels are also at driveway aprons. So they're part of a driveway. It's not just a panel. You're ripping up the end of someone's entire driveway. So there's a lot of concrete involved and a lot of grading to make that happen. The bike signs were grant funded. We put those at the various locations in the community as predetermined. The lane striping is part of the Complete Streets when, to the greatest extent practical, when we have a brand new canvas, so to speak. So portion of Flanders Road, Fruit Street, outbound to Lehigh Sheet Metal. We just paved that this summer and we put the center line in, and then to the greatest extent, we gave as much of the fog line, i.e. the white line, as possible. However, that's not necessarily going to be uniform in Westborough. So we have different types of layouts in our community. A normal subdivision sometimes will be 40 feet in the older subdivisions, but there's no striping in those subdivisions. 50 feet in newer subdivisions, again, there's no striping. But that's a uniform development set per plans. What we have is a lot of older Worcester County highway layouts. They're variable. They go all over the place. So when we when we do our painting, we do our best, but that doesn't always mean that you're going to have a uniform strip on either side. It just doesn't work that way. But we absolutely, to the greatest extent practical, do that every single time. And we just did it on Oak Street. We just did it on Milk Street, Northborough Town Line to the intersection at Oak. We just paved that and we did that. And then the school designation, that's Eli Whitney. Again, extremely deliberate. We filed for a grant when we paved Eli Whitney, Breen, and Valley Brook. I came before the board because there was no school zone designation there. That was a prerequisite of Mass DOT in order to get this. And so I went through that entire process to make sure it was legit. It had to be. Otherwise, they weren't going to get delivered to the DPW to be installed. So there's a lot going on in terms of what is complete streets. And we're very deliberate about how we do that. And so, I have a meeting this week to take a look at something on Ruggles Street, coupled with an audit that was done at the schools. And we'll take a look at what we can do there, but understanding that Ruggles Street's going to get excavated extensively for the sewer rehab. So there's a lot that has to be played into that, which is why it's important to coordinate with us, because we're the ultimate implementer, the Department of Public Works. We just have a lot of things that are in play, and it's important that we're not undoing something that's embarrassing. So Chris will speak a little bit more about the funding.
So this is our slide to wrap it up. Derek just covered some of the things we do pretty routinely. But of course, there's bigger projects that are happening in the town that create complete streets. Listed there are 3 that you're familiar with. The intent is not to go into those. It's really to highlight the bullets on the bottom, which is that it really just comes down to when you're using somebody else's money, you have to do what they require for their money. And so in recent meetings, we've talked about shared use paths and bike lanes and sidewalks. And if you're using Mass DOT money, you're either putting in a shared use path and 10 feet is their requirement, or you're putting sidewalks on both sides of the street. Like that's the start point for discussions with them. And so these projects that are listed here, which are in various stages of design, or about ready to be executed on Otis Street, those projects are not all going to be sidewalks on both sides of the street, and they're not all going to be 10-foot wide paths. But that's where we started, and with Mass DOT, and then that took out some negotiation, discussion, reasons why it might not make sense to put a 10-foot path, on every street that we have, which I think you can all imagine why that wouldn't make sense, but it still requires effort. So oftentimes these projects are multi-year. You can see the dates on those, they're pretty far out, but that's because there's, but for probably good reason, but there's a process and it just takes a long time, and there's lots of steps that involve Mass DOT, and they dictate that process, and so we follow it. But at the end of the day, the town does benefit, and it creates a complete street, and on a much larger scale than what we would have the capacity to do just as the Department of Public Works. So that's our update, and happy to talk about anything else or answer any questions.
Any questions from the board?
Yeah, so thank you very much. This is helpful, and I think we can always benefit from understanding this. I definitely have questions around prioritization, but before we kind of go there, so we had a specific request that was brought to us from a resident. So how are we handling that in the context of this conversation? And just not to be mysterious with the public. So we Andy Koningsberger had submitted information to the board, a letter regarding on-road striping for bicycles and pedestrians. And rather than kind of sending him down the path to potentially a citizen's petition, I think it was intended that the board have some conversation around that, inclusive of DPW, because there is a complete streets relationship. So I'm trying to understand how we want to handle that here. Because you haven't mentioned that specifically, so that's why I'm asking. Do you have, go.
Yeah. I think you received that request for the October town meeting warrant. The feedback that we got, that we talked about at one of your meetings, was that the timing of that it didn't need to happen in October, because even if we got the funding, we wouldn't be able to do the striping. But I think the intent of the presentation was to show what goes into this work, because the complete streets, the way that it's set up and intended to be implemented is that it's as roads are being redone. I think Derek explained, for example, Ruggles is going to be torn up. Do we want to be striping or otherwise doing pedestrian improvement projects on a road that's going to need to be redone? Sure. So Chris has seen that, and he's aware of that. So I think if you have questions about sort of that, that approach that Andy is proposing versus what we do now, I think this is the right time to ask that.
Okay. Right. I have a slew of questions, so I'm happy to go like whenever someone else. Okay. So
Can we maybe stay on that one?
yeah.
Because the thing, I think you asked a question. I'd love to hear, Chris, your comments. And a couple of things. One is, Andy did provide this to us. He provided a cost estimate on that, but would love to have your thoughts. You've seen his memo and any insights you have.
Yep. So just to kind of orient everybody, the picture on the left is just picture a normal road. You've got yellow lines down the center and white lines on the shoulders. And what Derek was talking about, what you've been talking about, is the picture on the right, which is basically we've redone the road, now it's to be restriped. Can we shift those white lines closer to the center line to create a more of a shoulder on the for bikes or whatever? So it's not an official bike lane, but it's just creating more space on the side of the road. So we do that. That's what he was describing. We don't right now. We don't deliberately go out to any street and just change the lines. We only do it when we're addressing the road itself. And I'll give you our reason why, or a reason why. So this picture, very nice and uniform, looks pretty. But as Derek was describing, our roads these are a little bit exaggerated just to make the point, right? But the picture on the left would be an existing road where the white line is hugging the shoulder, but the layouts of all our roads are not like exactly the same from end to end. And so the picture on the right shows if you shift those lines, you do gain some space, but it's not a uniform amount and it's not necessarily consistent the whole length of the road. And so from our perspective, it makes sense to shift that line when you're repaving the road and you have to repaint the lines. It doesn't necessarily seem to be efficient and be most cost effective to go out and just erase those lines, like paint over them or shave them off or whatever the technique you use, and then go paint them again in a different location when we're doing no other improvements to the road other than just moving those lines. Because the gain is not, again, this is my view on it, the gain just isn't that substantial to make it worth that effort, because it's going to cost a lot of money and take a lot of time to do that. Or I guess a lot is, when you say a lot of money, I guess that's dependent on what your view on it is. But I think it's money that could be spent on doing the things that Derek outlined, and simultaneously, benefiting from some shoulder improvement if it's a project where we're already doing it anyways. So that's just to kind of set the stage and give you our thoughts on the approach we take, at least right now, which has worked. We've done 2 sections of Flanders Road. We did Milk Street. So there are roads, and then the projects that we just mentioned, the bigger projects like East Main Street, that project is already in the queue. So it means we're waiting a little while, but I just don't think it makes sense. It doesn't seem to make sense in terms of best use of our money to go out and do this when we're not doing anything else to the road. So that's been our approach to date. And then West Main Street, this summer, we'll get this application to the Grafton Town Line.
So, thank you. I think I look at this a little bit differently. And I guess the first thing I want to start with is what is when you make this kind of change, right? This road striping reality, what is the minimum standard for a two-way passenger? Like, what does the vehicle lane have to be? What do you DPW adhere to minimally?
The minimum we use is 10 feet.
No,
10 feet
I mean
from
for the
the vehicle
vehicle.
lane.
I mean for the vehicle.
A vehicle lane of 10 feet.
Okay, vehicle lane. Okay.
So that's white line to yellow.
Yep.
Okay.
Is
Thank
that,
you.
is that ideal for commercial traffic?
It depends on which road you're talking about. So there might be roads like East Main Street where we're going to go more like 11 feet. Depends on volume and other factors, speed of the road.
Okay. Okay. So, from my lens, so just for the public's benefit, and again, these numbers have not been validated by DPW. I'm interested if you have an opinion about it. If you've looked at Andy's proposal, you said you looked at it, but he was proposing that for about 7.6 miles of roadway, we could achieve old stripe removal, stripe painting, for under $200,000. Now, I'm not sure the numbers are right, but let's assume they're in the general ballpark for the sake of this conversation. To me, this is an opportunity. The proposal is an opportunity to take what I think is a fairly small amount of money in the context of what we spend in this town, to create pretty broad access, 7.6 miles, because we have, 20-something miles of roadways in town? Is that right?
200 lane miles of roadway.
200 lane miles. Okay, I was way off. Sorry. 7.6 miles, which encompasses East Main to Route 9 to Southborough, West Main to the Grafton line, Upton. So these are pretty major roadways. To me, there's more bang for our buck in what is suggested in this road striping than the cost of research, design, grants, etc., of some of the multi-use paths. I'm not saying we shouldn't pursue shared use paths, Bewalt being an example, or others, but to me, this is absolutely within complete streets. I think you've said that. And to me, it's a question more, are we implementing it in a structured way? Like, I don't have a sense that we're doing it in a, for example, Oak Street got repaved. Is that a town road?
Yes.
Are there bike lanes there now, or what we're calling bike lanes? Okay. 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 So every road we're looking at is accommodating for this concept.
If it has lines.
If it has lines, right? Okay. So, all right.
So you're really talking
The major roads.
the roads that run into the rotary.
Okay.
Yeah, but take just real quick on that Oak Street comment. I mean, it's only from Spectrum to the courthouse, to the intersection. It's not the full run of Oak Street.
Correct.
So give you just,
Yeah. Right. I mean,
because that previous section, if I'm hearing you guys correctly, was not lined before, so therefore it was not in scope. You didn't change that until it was repaved. Gotcha. That's a good example.
yeah. Okay. And then Flanders, not the Fruit Street part, but Flanders Road, like past Whittier and all of that, that was portion, or beyond that, was repaved.
Flanders from East Main Street to Connector Road,
Yep.
and then a small section of Flanders where the new stoplight was put in, and then Flanders from Gilmore Road to the town line. So
Okay.
at the very end of.
And so we accommodated where we could, creating this additional space. Is that a true statement? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. All right.
But can I just make a
Yeah,
comment
yeah.
on the money? So 200,000. To put that in perspective, though, a $14 million free cash account, that doesn't sound like much money. but if that's about 20% of our Chapter 90 allotment.
Okay.
So $200,000 could pave, a small neighborhood potentially. So, that's the trade-off, right? So you can pave a street or you can paint lines. And potentially when you paint the lines, you're not really getting anything, you're not getting substantially more than what you already have. Potentially. I'm not saying that's 100% of the case, but our roads do look like this. I exaggerated it for the picture, but the point is they're variable width, as Derek described. And so you might get a shoulder that's 1.5 feet now, and maybe it's 2 feet, when you're done. So you got an extra 6 inches that you paid money for that you could have spent money on something else. So at the end of the day, we'll do whatever the town wants us to do, but that's the approach we've taken, is to use that money towards something else, except when we're already on that road and there's an opportunity to make that change because we're already there.
I have some other questions.
We have a
Just come to the microphone.
We have a painting contractor that we use, but to do the method of the removal of the fog line, you have a couple options, and I talked to another specialist. So you could just put black paint on
Right.
it. It's going to look the way it's going to look. Or you can grind it out. So if you do the grinding, we don't have a contractor for that. So we're going to have to do a separate procurement bid on that. Typically going to get outsourced specially. If you do that, if you take the one on the right, if I grind that out and I move that in towards that yellow, you're leaving 1/8 of an inch or more recessed in that pavement.
Right.
That's not getting filled.
Right.
That's where your tire is now for the bike. And I don't know what I'm not saying that's bad. I don't know what that experience feels like when you feel that now,
Yep.
the entire lineal.
That was going to be one of my questions because it doesn't
Or
account.
water accumulating in said area.
Yeah.
Because the road is old, it's probably in pretty rough shape.
Yep.
So I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Yep.
Just
Well, it's clearly ideal when you're touching a road, right, to be looking at all aspects: crosswalks, safe access curb cuts, sidewalks. And again, understanding you can't do everything, but when you're looking at the road only to be, my expectation, just to be clear, is that any road we're paving, we should be accommodating to the greatest extent possible safe passage for biking and pedestrians with larger shoulders. That is my expectation. I can't speak for the whole board, but that would be my expectation. It also slows vehicle traffic, which a lot of people won't like me for, but I think that that's okay because I think people generally, it's still not an ideal shoulder for those that want to bike, right? It's not like being on a path. Yep.
If I can, Ian?
Sure.
So on this vein of questions, because I have other parts of this that I want to ask questions about later, so I'll reserve some comments for then. But I guess my first thought is absolutely support the idea of every time you touch a road, complete streets is under consideration and should be always adopted. And I appreciate all the work you guys have done so far. The pictures certainly speak to that. My concern is this. First of all, Mr. Koningberg's letter to the board laid out some very specific roads that he was talking about predominantly don't fall under this category. Most of the roads that he's talking about are the major thoroughfares into the center of town, which, yes, when you get out to the very peripheries of them, out near Grafton or way out near Southborough, yes, you start to end up with this. But large portions of that 7 point whatever miles it was are actually curbed all the way already. They're pretty nice roads. Under this strategy, it makes total sense as you touch a road to do this. But that strategy also limits us to never, ever get a contiguous section of long distance unless there's a major DOT grant fund, like the East Main project that's now going underway, where you'll be doing a significant length of road at that point. But until we, from the Rotary to, where does that go to? It goes to Lyman Street, I think. You're not going to have that fixed, but from Lyman Street all the way out to Ullman's, et cetera, it's now in theory going to be fixed as part of that project. So how do we get contiguous? And I think that's what Mr. Koenigsberg letter is more about, is, you know, we need to have a more proactive solution to addressing this on existing roads that don't require a major, you know, multi-million-dollar potential, you know, 3-mile long pavement project, because we will never get there. We will never get there if we just piecemeal it along the way. So that there's something to consider. I would also just ask if this is gone, if this conversation, and if the ATSC has seen Mr. Koenigsberg letter, because I would expect that ATSC would have an in-depth conversation about this to come back to the board with a recommendation on how we should address that. So I don't know if that's happened at all.
So I can,
I'll look. I see our chairs here
I
too.
can,
So
I can speak to that. When I was a liaison, it was brought up. So I was a liaison from this board to ATSC. It was raised several times. At the time, there was minimal interest from the committee to explore that, which really led to Mr. Koenigsberg. And I can say this from that experience and speaking with him directly of why he submitted this.
that's actually kind of, I don't know how to say this the other way.
Can I comment on that, Ian?
Sure.
Since I am
Mark's
the
the
current liaison?
Okay, sure.
Yeah, the ATSC has been given Andrew Koenigsberg's letter, and they are extremely interested in what the Complete Streets policy will, how that will interact with his letter, and they are interested in moving forward with this. And I know the chair is in attendance tonight, but she's here specifically for this conversation. If you want to ask her what their conversations have been, you know, I'd hear her comments.
Well, I certainly, if up to the chair, but I certainly would welcome her comments. But I would just say before she chooses to do so, you know, again, I see this as a conversation that needs to occur, right? There's got to be a longer term strategy. And this to me is a nice way, pun intended, to patch things the full distance as opposed to section by section by section, because again, we'll never get there. So I don't know if, Mr. Chair, you want to ask for comment from our ATSC chair.
Yeah, I mean, if you are interested, you're not required to, but we'd be happy to have you speak. I think it's relevant.
Thanks for the opportunity. Yeah, we actually discussed the same thing when Shelby Marshall was our liaison. And we got the answer from Chris and Derek about how they were proceeding, and we felt, you know, that maybe we would back off on that and pursue other things at the time. So we would like to see it. I just didn't think it was possible.
Yeah, I guess I would.
But the only way I found out about Andy's proposal was by watching this meeting when you were discussing it last fall. He has not come to us at all.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I would think that there would be a natural conversation. Our DPW director brought up the point about how this money, you know, Chapter 90 money couldn't be used, for instance, to pave a neighborhood, as an example. Well, you know, I know that we have a complete list of all the roads in town, and they're all graded a certain level, right? A through, I think it's letter grading, if I remember correctly, A through E or something. I would think there would be a natural conversation with the ATSC to say, hey, what is our recommendation as far as, do we pave these E rated roads? Is that a higher priority from an ATSC recommendation perspective versus, you know, doing a grinding of lines all the way down East Main Street, as an example, right? I'm looking for that kind of information and input to understand what the right decisions are there along the way. And that's just my general expectation.
So just another way, you know, how we were looking at this since last fall is that Mark had informed us that this board had asked DPW to go back and take a look at it, costs, and so we were waiting for that. And then my feeling was that we would invite Andy to talk to us about it.
Okay, that's
So
great.
that's just how I'd been looking at it. But I was waiting for the DPW input, which you had asked for. So, and I guess you got it tonight too.
Thank you. Let's go.
Yeah, so Patrick, I mean, I agree. I mean, I feel like, you know, we've got to sort of make a direction. I think this board should be indicating kind of how we want to proceed. I think, Derek, you make some great points around if you grind it down versus painting it over. I mean, I think painting it over aesthetically probably doesn't look great. We did that with parking spots downtown, and it has a look to it that I don't love. I don't know if bikers care or if it really matters to a driver, but aesthetically, it kind of looks piecemeal and patchy. Grinding doesn't seem to be practical. I don't know, you're affecting the road surface in already a narrow shoulder and creating maybe potentially a hazard for a biker. So I don't have a good answer here, but I do think that I think that the other part of this is making sure that we actually, everyone's clear on what is the plan and where will this be added if we're not going to go whole hog into this. Like, so tying into the paving plan, like, where are we adding, like, what is the outlook? And so at what point in time will the whole town where we are resurfacing and striping have those lanes? Like, I don't have visibility to that. Are we talking like 5 years from now, 10 years from now? So where we have stripes, because if we don't have stripes, we don't care, right? They're just, everyone drive as you can and be careful.
Yeah. So, I don't know, but I would say 10.
Okay.
Because it's a lot of miles of road.
Right.
And we only have a certain amount of money each year to pave, unless the town's going to give more money, which could always happen, which many other towns do.
Right.
But right now the town doesn't. And so, based on our current allotment, we're not only focused on those 4 roads, right? Milk Street, South Street, East Main Street, West Main Street.
Right.
I think there's plenty of other roads in the town to cover as well. So it's probably closer to 10 than it is to 5.
Okay.
And I think something the board might want to consider is like what's driving the need for these lanes, right? So there are thousands of people that drive the roads every day, right? That we see, and we know we need to address issues with the roads. What I don't see, and I'm not the person that speaks for it, but I am on the roads pretty frequently and I pay attention, at least I try to. I don't see thousands of bikers out there. And so I know there are some, and I know there's an intent, and we've expressed tonight that our intent is to comply with the policy and do what we can. Actually, those projects that are on the horizon, East Main Street, I mean, we initiated that before the Complete Streets process even started, trying to get things in motion to address some of these issues. But that's just based on the intent the town has to offer those accommodations. But I don't know that there's really hundreds of people that are going to be suddenly biking because we now moved a line 6 or 10 inches.
So I am a biker, and I do bike regularly through the center of town. Even this time of year, if it's decent weather, I will bike. Real quick, I wanted to address your point around the grinding piece. It doesn't really affect a biker who's biking through the lane. That 1/8 of an inch is not significant. It's not a rut that you're going to twist I mean, generally speaking, it's not a safety issue. But Chris, I agree with you, right? I don't see hundreds of bikers going through town either, but that's exactly the point of this, is that we want to accommodate that so people have that flexibility to use another mode of transportation.
Right.
And there's probably a significant amount of people who aren't choosing to do that because they don't feel safe. Legally, they can't go on sidewalks, and they don't want to go down a strip that's 6 inches wide where there's drainage grates and things like that, while an 18-wheeler's pulling past them on East Main Street. That's the whole point of this. And I'm hopeful. I think where Shelby's headed here is I think that there needs to be a greater thought on a full term plan. We're going to end up with a patchwork of quarter mile sections of where it's fixed, and then a quarter mile where it's not fixed, and then a half mile where it's fixed, and it's just going to be this patchwork over the next 10 years. I think what Mr. Konigsberg is asking is how do we get there quicker in a more effective way that is more contiguous and ideally looks nice, right? It serves multiple purposes here. I do not expect thousands of people per day to be leveraging biking in these areas, but if it accommodates dozens more, I would love to see that. Dozens more in a day, in an hour,
Sure.
or whatever. So.
But if we have to, if right now it's been we've taken the responsibility to make the decision based on our plan to execute the way we've executed. If that guidance changes, that's totally fine. But those decisions are based on understanding we want to encourage people to bike, but we know we have road issues that we need to address. And so the choice is, in some cases, spend $200,000 on moving a line or doing other complete streets type activities. And if the intent is to do line striping, that's totally fine. We'll do that. But I'm just offering to you what our recommendations are, which is I think that money would be better spent on sidewalk ramps and crossings and paving roads versus painting.
So I just to two things. One is presently it's the role of the ATSC to review the complete streets policy annually and monitor its implementation townwide. That's how the policy is reflected. It refers to committee. That committee is the one that's designated. Whether that stays that way long term, I don't know, but that's presently the way it is. And in this way, it gives ATSC a clear policy-driven framework with which to interact with DPW, because you're the ones that own the complete streets policy. I don't think that process has been kind of fully implemented between DPW and ATSC, at least to my knowledge, serving as a liaison in them presently, meaning formal review of the policy, implementation, assessing. So that's something where I think that there is an opportunity. I think that there's a way to look at this, and again, I don't know that the numbers are right. Let's just use the numbers as they are. If we phase this into 3 years, it's about $66,000 a year. Like, is that reasonable? You know, could we do a free cash article across 3 years with a plan that makes sense given where you're working to create, 8 miles of on-road safety? I don't know. I'm not here to make that decision. You guys are the experts, but I think that there needs to be a conversation about this to see what is feasible. And maybe those aren't even the roads. I don't know. So
Can I make a comment? So I think the conversations have been happening, because this isn't, although, we're referring to an email that was sometime last year, the conversations have been happening for several years about this. And we've made our position known. And if someone directs us to do otherwise, we'll do that. But that hasn't occurred. So we've been executing the way we've been executing. And
I think it's important to. I don't think anybody's saying that you're not executing based on what. You guys are doing a great job. I don't think that's what Shelby's saying.
I'm not trying to be defensive.
I think what they're saying is there's an opportunity here, whether it comes through some free cash article or not, to pay for this, because we don't want to take away that DOT money that you're getting now for those projects that you just described. We want to be additive to this, and if for short dollars, and I hate to use that phrase, but compared to the total budget, what Shelby just outlined is fairly reasonable money to go do this. That's the level of conversation I expect to go through ATSC in partnership with the DPW.
But I just want to be clear, that number, let's say that number is the number, and let's say it's 66,000. That's not the total cost. That's the cost to hire a contractor to do that work. But the work's done at night, which means we're paying overtime for people to be out there, which means we need to have people that want to be out there. It's multiple days overnight. It's, if you break it out in phased approach, like you said, which we always look at, that potentially, I don't know if this is the case, but it potentially creates other challenges from a contracting perspective, because somebody doesn't want to come here and do work that's only this long when it takes them a lot of effort to mobilize, right? They want to come here for the whole thing. And so if we tell them you're only coming for part of it, well, that sometimes, I'm not saying this is the case, but it happens on other things where that drives your price up, because I'm not getting I'm not getting enough to make it worth it, kind of thing. So we do look at, in all of what we do, opportunities for phasing, but it just sometimes doesn't make it worth it.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate your presentation on Complete Streets. So this was a policy that was approved by this board, I think shortly before I joined in 2020. I think it's been very effective. I do the and I think it's around 900 something we get every year. Maybe it's gone up a little bit, but it's not a tremendous amount of money, and it's focused on kind of the most specific areas of need within town, and you've graded across the town where those needs are. I would not approve of pulling from whatever those needs are to restripe certain roads within this town. I think we ought to follow the policy as it is stated. And if this is a project or something that we feel should be done, then it should be a separate warrant article that folks in town can decide whether or not they support. And that the money that's allocated for Chapter 90 should be focused on what you're doing and how you're executing currently. So that the town can decide whether or not that moving these lanes is a priority for them, or if they're fine with this phased approach. And I don't think they're completing it a quarter of a mile at a time. I know that was for effect.
Right.
But there's really 5 or 6 major projects coming up over the next decade that are slowly going to complete this, right? A huge project in 2030 for Route 30, sort of on the east side of town, and things of that. And you already mentioned West Main Street this summer. So I think I'm comfortable with how it's being deployed currently. And if it is something like a policy is a policy, I wouldn't want to necessarily change that. We should consider it being a specific warrant article that honestly I don't know that I'd support, but I would consider that may be the way we should handle this.
Yeah, I agree with you, Sean. I guess my question there, though, too, is that we have limited resources. So it would also be understanding the trade-offs if we say it's a separate article and we're allocating this, just ensuring that either you have the resources standing by to take on more projects, or what is the trade-off? Like, what would not get done that this got prioritized over? And I don't know if it affects things that are being done under Chapter 90. So we have more money, but does that mean we're not utilizing all of Chapter 90 because we just don't have the staff and the time to do it, or not? So I guess that'd be my question there. But I think the presentation was great. And I also think, like, I would hate to go out and do East Main Street now, because I know that the public's going to come back and say, you just did all this work and you're tearing it up 2 or 3 years later. And we spent money on, taxpayer money on painting lines that is useless because it's going to get ripped up and redone anyways. So I think and it is, and your answer is, and I don't know if it's 10 years, it could be 15 years too. And looking at these things, I don't know what that prioritization, you said you don't know what it is, and you gave us an estimate, but I agree with Sean. If we decide, I think it would be a warrant article for the town to decide, but I think we also just have to be prepared to say, hey, these are the things that, this would take priority over something else. Because I imagine that would be the case, knowing that you just don't have people sitting around waiting for a new project to come up.
So I think that where there's a will, there's a way. And just to be really candid and not to take away from the work that DPW has done so far or that of ATSC, I'm not sure there's been a will around this, to be honest with you. I think it's really important that we create a community where biking and pedestrian passage is as safe as we expect our drivers to have. Philosophically, I think that's, given our commitment and how much money we spend on purchasing passive open space, I see no reason why we can't do that. That this is certainly my view, but it's also what others have asked of me as I sit here in this seat. I would also say that the proposal that is here isn't game time ready, right? So there's some work that's going to be done. Chris, you offered some thoughts around some other factors that I hadn't even thought of, right? So to me, this sort of goes back to the, first of all, we made a commitment to bike and pedestrian safety by accepting the complete streets policy. That's inherent in it. So this isn't new. It's really about equity and kind of being intentional about how we're doing the striping specifically across the town. I do think that the public may be more receptive to an initiative like this than larger capital projects, where we have found an interest and a way to put significant amount of work and effort into grant preparation. So again, that's where it goes back to where there's a will, there's a way. So trail projects are very important. I like them. And as my friend Mark likes to say, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. We should be able to kind of contemplate both. And so that points back to, I think where this needs to go is that the ATSC, as the committee responsible for kind of collaborating with DPW, really needs to prioritize this as part of a discussion. And if it makes sense, working with you guys to come back with a proposal, potentially an article to say, this is what it's going to look like. And we're proposing a 3-year plan and whatever, and these are the streets. I think it's important that that conversation take place. I'm not going to dictate what the committee does. That's also for the public to provide input to that committee.
Can I just make one, just to make sure we're all talking about the same intent? So the document that you received was conceptual. So he proposed an 11-foot wide vehicle lane by shifting a line, and that potentially that would get you a 4-foot bike lane, right? Yeah. Most of what we're going to get is in the 2.5 to 3.5 foot lane. And so if that's good, then fine. But I don't know that that is, like, we can do this. And I just want to be absolutely clear. You're not going to get consistently across the, even if we did it all at the same time, you wouldn't get a 4-foot lane, and you wouldn't get it. You wouldn't get it in most cases.
Yeah.
In most cases, it's between 2.5 to 3.5 feet. And so I just want to make sure if we have this discussion and pursue these things, that it's all done and said and done, and someone goes out and looks at the road and says, well, this isn't what I asked for. I'm telling you, you're not getting a 4-foot lane in most cases. You're getting something less than that. And if 4 feet is your standard, we can say right now you won't get that across the board.
I think that's totally reasonable.
I trust what you are saying, and I also believe in trust and verify, and people like pictures. So I really think, this is not the first time this conversation has come up, I really think that if there's a conversation around, again, complete streets is a broad policy. Striping is, on-road safety is just one slice of the pie. If we're talking about this, let's look at maybe what's proposed here. Maybe there are some things that weren't proposed that you guys would say, this makes more sense, not this road, not that, look at another road. But show us, like, here are the 7 miles, and, 60% of it, like, here, I mean, we have GIS. I mean, I don't want to say it's not hard to do this, but we should be able to kind of say, like, even by a heat map, here's where we're going to get 4, and here's where we're going to get 2, and here's where we're going to get 3. So we can kind of visually be like, oh, well, Jesus, that was an exercise, and it wasn't a waste of time, but it kind of makes us say, well, we wouldn't support that article maybe.
Absolutely. I mean, in my mind, it's a fairly simple thing, and I'm greatly oversimplifying this. But what I'm saying, how if you have 5 miles, I agree with what you're saying, Chris, 100%. That whole 5 miles is not going to get 4 foot of lane on both sides. It's not going to happen. What percentage of that would be greater than 3 feet of gain, as an example? That is a data point that I can use and say, hey, is it worth me as a taxpayer? Is it worth it to do this if I get 80% of a 5-mile stretch of road on both sides that gets greater than 3 feet of space? Probably, right? But if you tell me it's 80% and you might get a foot more, probably not. Right. And I'm not looking to move sidewalks and change easements and all of those types of things to make things greater. That's what we're talking about here. We're just taking the existing width of the road and what can we get out of it. So I mean,
My question there, though, just to, sorry, Chris, was, it sounded like you said we're getting an additional 3 feet, not 4 feet. I guess my question is some of it we're at 2 and we're getting 2.5. Is it worth it to pay the money to get an extra 6 inches?
Yeah, I mean,
And I think you said that. That's,
yes.
I don't think we're going to get, from what we have, an additional.
Well, there are sections in what we're talking about here. What Andy has laid out, right? There are sections where it's probably less than 6 inches right now, right? So
Meaning the current shoulder.
the current shoulder space between the fog line and the curb or whatever it is, it's very close, right? And usually there's a water grate, every couple hundred yards. So anything you can gain on that's good. But again, as a taxpayer, is it worth it to get one foot? Probably not. Is it worth it to get 2 or 3 feet more out of that space? Probably, right? From a safety perspective, from a bikeability perspective, shall we use the term equitability, for more use of that space? Absolutely, right? So I'm just trying to simplify it down. I like where you're headed with that, Shelby. I think it's just a metric, and I would hope that ATSC is having those questions of the DPW. If we wanted to do this project and get a warrant onto the article for X numbers of thousands of dollars paid through whatever fund is appropriate, what data is needed to go have that discussion with the community at town meeting to say, is this something you want?
Yeah.
And
I mean, I don't know. Could community preservation funds be used for this? I mean,
was having
recreation
that debate with somebody the other
recreation
day.
applies. I
Yes.
don't know if that means it has to have grass or something. I don't know, but
yeah.
but I think we actually need to see it. I mean, Chris and Derek, you
so-
probably know the numbers off the top of your head, but I think it's kind of like when Chief Purcell shows us the fire truck and why we need the ladder to go up and how many buildings, whatever. I just feel like, for me, it's very nebulous to say, in my mind, I'm not saying yours, to say, I can tell you, like, we're not going to get X. I'm like, okay, but show me. Show me. That's all I'm asking.
And by doing the roads that we've resurfaced and have restriped, you can see that there's variations throughout that. So to go out to an existing road to try to determine what that distance would be gained, I don't know how you're gonna do that, because you have to physically be in the street to do it. And you gotta take measurements, like spot measurements all the way down the entire road. Because we've already painted new roads, and you can see it's not consistent. So there's no way to get an existing road to have consistent measurements for a presentation. The reverse happens as well. So all we can do is demonstrate what we've done on a fresh canvas. We've done
So
that.
we don't. So what you're saying is,
We can take an average.
we don't know for, let's say, from East Main to Route 9 to the bridge, that crosses over Route 9. We don't know the width of the road. We don't have. Don't we know the width of the road and the travel lanes? I'm not trying to be flip. Well,
I think you have that up here, right?
Yeah.
okay. So road width, potential shoulder.
You need 28 feet to do this minimum with a 10-foot lane on both sides plus 4 feet of space, plus whatever the width of the line is. So call it 29 feet.
So this is what he has here.
So these locations, we went out with a tape measure
Okay.
and measured, and there's addresses associated with them, but you can see, the very top one was between the railroad bridge and Lyman Street. So at the location he measured is 29.5 feet from curb to curb. And if you put an 11-foot lane in there and painted a white line, you could get 3.75 feet of a bike lane, right? I'm not going to guarantee you that it's 29.5 feet from the bridge to Lyman Street, because it's not. It just isn't. It's not how all our roads were made. And so that column in the center is where he measured the existing road, either from a curb to a curb or from the edge of the pavement to the edge of the pavement, if there's no curb. And then the column on the right is, if you have an 11-foot lane, what you might get for a bike lane. So I just mentioned, you're probably not going to get 4 feet. So there are a few up there. South Street between Denny and school. I mean, that's a very specific location.
Yeah.
That, like, it's great that you can bike there, but
But
we're really talking about places further out that are trying to get into the town or otherwise. So, so that's kind of an anomaly, but on Upton Road, you might get 1.5 feet. And so, what Derek was saying is if you want more than this, then it's really us out there with measuring tapes doing this, and we will do it. But I'm telling you, I think that's a little bit overboard, because this is generally what we're going to get. And if that's what the town wants, if those numbers are, hey, that feels
That's better than I thought it would be.
well, so yeah, I guess that's what I'm saying. Like, this is the first time I'm seeing this slide, and I think this is kind of where, like, a conversation back with ATSC around this is like, so here are the streets that here are the main roads, like, start big picture, that we want to create greater connectivity to and from. What data points do we already have? What's it going to take to get those other data points? I don't know, but maybe it looks like this if it's pretty easy to come up with. And then now all of a sudden we kind of say, okay, on average, we're getting 3.5 feet of shoulder space. And then that becomes a recommendation potentially from ATSC. DPW may or may not, kind of advocate for it or what have you. And then, it's up to us to decide what we want to support. But I think until we see this, it's all a little bit theoretical.
Right.
In my mind.
I guess I just need to be clear on what you're asking from the DPW when we finish this discussion, because I don't I don't know what you want me to come back with.
I think we need to talk about this as a board. I know we do have folks, we're way behind on
I'm sorry.
site plan reviews and other stuff that we have people waiting for. I'll entertain a couple questions, but I think we have to move. And I don't think we're going to come to that thing tonight. I think we probably.
Ian, can I get a
Yep.
Ian, can I get a turn?
Yep.
So I did have some specific questions. We've had some streets redone, like Flanders, Oak, and Milk, and then streets like Adams. Adams Street would not have painting, is that correct?
Correct.
Just double yellow.
Okay, so I guess what I'm trying to figure out is when we have resurfaced roads like Flanders, like Oak and Milk Street, are we doing anything to smooth out those jagged edges? Because it seems like if we're just resurfacing the existing roadway, then we are going to have some limitations on the width of that quote unquote bike lane. But are we doing anything to widen the skinny portions a little bit so that that bike lane is closer to 4 or 5 feet?
No, we're resurfacing the existing road as it is built right now. And so there's driveways, curb, all kinds of other things that influence the width of the road. And again, the picture I showed was an exaggeration, but no, we're not building more road.
Not reconstructing basically the road.
Right.
And are we doing any are we identifying those as bike lanes? We're not, right? We're not painting anything on the road saying
No.
bicycles travel here.
No, we're not.
All right. I know I don't want to, start painting streets that are going to be redone in the next few years, like Ruggles. I know you mentioned Fisher, but I believe Fisher just got moved to 29. I think the East Main Street is still coming up in 2028, I think it was, right?
Yes. Or East Main
so
Street is
I
30.
certainly-
East Main Street is 30.
Yeah, 2030.
Okay, so Fisher Street's 29, East Main Street's 30. And, you know, in Ruggles Street, I think there's a sewer project scheduled in the next couple of years.
This coming summer for a portion of Rutland.
Okay, so that's even sooner. So obviously, I don't want to paint those streets until after those projects are done. So now we've limited, you know, if we've reduced even further the number of streets that are even going to be included in this project. And I think the best thing would be to go back and identify which streets need this, whether Andy's recommendations or ATSC should get involved with that, I think. Figure out which streets need this, and then I need somebody, whether it's Derek or, you know, I'm not sure who, to give me a real cost. You know, Andy has a cost, but you've talked about residual costs that may drive that up. And then, you know, once we have that real cost, can we talk about a phased approach, or, you know, bring it to town meeting all at once, or maybe not even bring it forward at all if it's too expensive. So until I have a better idea of what streets are involved, what the costs are, you know, I think that's where this conversation needs to go. And I think ATSC should probably drive that. And that's all I have to say.
Okay.
Yeah, and they did have.
Yeah, I'm wondering though, I'm assuming are you waiting for site plan?
I have the next two items. The
Yep.
Conservation Commission just let me know that we're up in front of them.
When is your meeting with the planning board?
Not until February.
So we could do it on the 27th.
Do you want to table that? I apologize.
Nope, and I apologize to interrupt the conversation.
No.
Nope.
They just messaged me and said that
Like,
we're up.
where are you?
Okay.
For the last two items on the pitch.
Okay. Is it okay if we reschedule to another meeting?
That's
And I
fine.
apologize for you coming here and sitting, so,
We're going to be in front of the town for a couple meetings anyway, so.
okay. Well, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for
Much
that.
appreciated.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, let's continue then.
Well, I think we can, I agree with, we're not going to solve this now. So I think the question is, what is the next action? And the way the Complete Streets policy is written, it's that ATSC is the committee that is supposed to help with implementation. I want to use the right words here. To ensure compliance with Complete Streets policy and to monitor its implementation townwide. That is the role of the committee. So this smacks right in the heart of that function. And so I think that goes back to that committee to say, okay, we've got a resident who has proposed this. How do we want to approach it? And understanding how is the Complete Streets program being implemented, and what are the plans for, you know, what do we accomplish in 24, 25? What's the plan like? And then report back to the board.
I would agree with that.
So
I did have a couple other threaded, different points that are different than the lane widths and things like that were brought up, and I wanted to just quickly touch on if I could, Ian.
Sure.
I guess, first of all, sticking kind of in the general context of what Shelby was talking about, in the policy as it is today, there's a performance measures piece. It talks a lot about measuring the performance. I'm not sure if ATSC is doing that regularly. I don't see, as the previous agenda item Shelby talked about, goals and measuring against those. I don't know if there are goals and how they are measuring themselves against those. I would personally like to see what those measurements are, what the goals, if there are goals, what they are. I'd like to understand that on a regular basis, annually, if that's appropriate. So I'm hopeful that ATSC is already doing that work. I don't know if they are. And then in the vein of the actual agenda item, there was a question as to whether or not the board has an appetite to reopen this. And to Sean's point, this is now 5 years. This policy has gone on for 5 years. I do believe that there is a need to go back and take a look at this. Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of socioeconomic changes that have happened over the last 5 years that we should take a look at this. And then finally, Derek had made a point about, I believe it was the Fales School, if I remember correctly, and the select board in the past having approved some complete street works in regards to the school zone up there, assigning it as a school zone. My question is it under the, because I don't remember that ever coming before this board since I've been on the board that we voted on that. I could have been out of meeting, I suppose, but is it under the authority of the select board to identify a school zone? And that's my first part of the question. Is it under our authority to identify it, or does that fall
I think
under
we're
the
in charge
authority
of
the
roads,
school
yes.
committee?
It did come to this board.
Okay.
Yeah, we did come to us.
Okay, I guess I don't remember it. So then my ask of this board is to take under consideration, based on the context of this agenda topic, on a future discussion, to have a conversation about putting a school zone in front of the high school. The high school does not have a school zone right now, which was shocking to me. And we've had at least one resident send us a letter in the last year or so about excessive speeding in that area, even though that there's a flashing warning sign. The police chief put a sign there. I never saw data from it in regards to what it looked like, but I've driven through there many times and I see trucks flying down that street. So my ask of the board is to consider that a future agenda topic to talk about whether it's
So not a complete streets item, though.
Well, it does fall under complete streets. Absolutely does fall under complete streets. I'm not sure why you would say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was identified in the safe routes to schools as well as something that the town should be looking at. And the ATC has had discussions on this. I'm not sure. I think at this point they're bringing forward a crosswalk on Russell Street, to try not to too many things at once and too many, expenses at once. But I do believe, and I hate to put words in the ATSC's mouth, so again, we could always ask for them for comments on this.
Oh, I would welcome comments on it, but I believe it's something we need to bring to the board. I think it needs to be brought up. It shocked me.
Chris, how often should a community revisit its complete street policy? Is there guidance on that? I don't know. Okay, so,
It's not a requirement of the program
No.
okay.
to
What
update it.
what I can say is I've met with the assistant town planner twice, and I have gone over what's been commenced and where we're going
Yep.
through our initiatives pursuant to the 50 prioritization that are on the list.
And I think that that's probably a little bit of maybe the disconnect in my sense, because we have jurisdiction over the roadways, and yet it feels very planning-ish. Is that fair to say?
A little bit, yeah.
So I think we need to, I'm going to take back my comments around ATSC taking a look at this. I think we need to have this as another agenda item to take a look at and compile our thoughts around the complete streets policy and what are the next steps, whether we need to update it, determine kind of ownership of it and its implementation of that oversight part. I think that that's a better first step.
I think that falls under us, though.
That's what I'm saying.
I guess, are you asking us to revisit who owns it?
I'm asking us to revisit and review the policy as well as the content within it, which is who has oversight, that committee piece. Should it stay with ATSC?
Okay.
Does it belong elsewhere? I don't know.
Okay.
I think that's probably a better first step before we go down into this whole further striping conversation, because I think we should start at the bigger picture and then determine next steps. That's my thought. I don't know what the rest of the board thinks.
I'd be okay with that, Shelby.
I'm fine to review it. We'll just have to prioritize it for an agenda. But I think what we're saying here, though, I don't see this being a warrant that will be achieving a warrant article in March.
No, I'm not expecting.
Yeah.
No, but I think we should,
We only have a couple weeks
yeah.
to close the warrant.
No, I know. I just, I think we should at least circle back with Andy and let him know. I did make him aware that this was going to be discussed tonight, so he actually is at conservation tonight. So I'm sure he'll watch it.
I did as well. And
Oh, you
he
did?
said
Okay.
that he would send along comments or questions
Okay.
after he watches it.
Okay, that's fine. So,
Good.
okay.
So just so that we all understand. So
we have
at
nothing
this
right now.
point, there's no action items for anyone to take except
Except for
to
us.
put it on a future agenda,
For us to review the policy.
which it sounds like there's multiple parts to that. And so I think maybe that's also part of reviewing goals, because that's not one of your goals. And I think it's going, I mean, given the discussion just tonight, I think it's going to take a significant amount of time.
Yep.
Okay.
Anything further?
No, thank you.
I would just add to that action list of my request that we consider the speed zone, school speed zone in front of the high school at a future meeting as an action item.
Okay. Then on.
Although Mark said that has been discussed, so wouldn't that be more for ATSC to come before us and to present its recommendation?
Sure, if they're going to put it onto a future agenda, I mean, I'd like to see that happen sooner than later. I mean, it's been a problem for a long time. So I'll look for that
Yeah.
chair to do that work and come back to
So
us.
Pat, it's been on the agenda for the ATSC. It's been an agenda item, and I think, again, without putting words in their mouth, they didn't want to present two articles for this warrant and ask for the moon, so to speak.
I don't think
feel
that-
like that's,
Correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think that requires an article. I don't, Mark, I'm not sure if it requires an article.
There's an expense to it, Pat.
Yeah, but I think that could fall under
It's not
the,
free.
I think it could fall under the budget of the DPW. I mean, when they just talked about, or under the Chapter 90 funding that we're talking about here, right, where we're putting out signs. I don't think it went to town meeting to vote in the fail school signs that were described tonight, right, as an example. Funds were used out of Chapter 90 funding to go
That
do
was
that.
funded by a grant. That was a grant.
Funded by a grant, okay, so perfect, right, so
But the
that's,
majority of flashing signs are funded either through town meeting or a grant, not through.
right. So all I'm saying is I agree, ATS, it sounds like it's been on their mind for a while. I haven't heard anything come back. I'd like it to see it come back to the board at some point with a recommendation that we could then take forward, and I
Yeah,
don't.
I've actually updated the board on that at previous meetings, Pat. So when you say you haven't heard that, I have updated you and that they've discussed that. So, regardless, if there's no funding involved, if we can get a grant, or if DPW, which I haven't heard them say, if DPW can fit it within their budget, I do think that ATSC has identified that both in the walk audit and the safe routes to schools as a need for school zone both on West Main and on Ruggles.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate that.
Okay.
I just appreciate too, because I do a lot of work, and let's spread that out a little bit and make sure that school committee, school officials, they have capacity to write grants too and go after this stuff. And if they want a school zone within their campus setting, I think it should fall on them. I mean, I did Eli Whitney because we were paving Eli Whitney and charging forward. But I'm not going to get myself in here doing everybody else's department's jobs either.
Yeah,
There's a breaking point.
Yeah, I just think this board, Mark, you've reported out, you've given brief updates as you would as liaison, but I think having an understanding of if there are two priority school zones, like come and do a presentation to us, right? Because we haven't heard anything about them other than your update is all I'm saying, which is appropriately brief. So give us some detail, let us know how we can support or not support those initiatives, and coupling that with specific requests that have come from residents who are very concerned specifically around the high school. So ATSC representatives are here tonight. They're hearing that. They can take that back and then figure out kind of how they want to come back to this board.
So can I just respond to Derek on that though, real quick? Because when you say, well, the school department should be writing the grant for the school zone, well, we go to the school department, they'll say that the roads are not under the control of the school committee, and they shouldn't be writing the grant for that. So I don't want, again, I don't want to create more work for you, Derek. I just want to identify how to get this done. And I think I'll go back to ATSC and relay the comments from everybody tonight and see if they want to bring something forward. Again, I think it's a little late to bring it forward for March, but, we'll ask them to come to a future meeting and get on an agenda.
I think the point, Mark, is that if ATSC, if we've all decided that ATSC is the body that's going to be bringing forward these types of recommendations, it's not just making the recommendation, but it's also following up with solutions to additional costs. So ATSC could very appropriately also write a grant and come up with that funding. ATSC can sponsor a warrant article as they have in the past. So there's work beyond the recommendation that group can do.
Yeah, and I'll be quite honest, I don't understand what this creating a school zone for the high school is on both Ruggles and West Main and what that entails and other things. I know, Mark, you brought it up, and is it other ADA things for sidewalks and others that, need to be done? Is that being done at the same time work is being done on Ruggles Street? Are we jumping in front of other
Typically,
things?
there's flashing yellow lights, the posted 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure what else is involved.
No, I'm not asking you for the answer. Yeah, I'm not asking for the answer. It's just I personally don't know the whole extent of what it takes. I know that Derek did come when we were redoing Eli Whitney, and that school didn't have it. Other schools do have it. Well, Mill Pond doesn't, I don't believe. It's in the neighborhood.
It is in the neighborhood.
By itself.
Yeah.
But understand it. I have it on our list for a future thing but I think that ATSC, coming back and helping us with that makes sense. Anything further? Thank you both.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Good
it.
evening.
Okay, so the site plan reviews, we're postponing those to the next agenda. Again, apologies for folks that were watching for those two. So I'll move to item 6, which is actually just a question. The item 9, the liquor license hearing, is that a public hearing?
It's not a public hearing, but we actually, the launch actually received their certificate today, so they're not coming. And there's no need to move forward with that agenda item.
So we can, okay,
Yeah, so they received their license.
perfect. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't being after 7:40, holding them off too. So, and just looking, is there anything else? I don't think there's anything else for that. So I'll turn to you for the capital improvement plan, which is item 6 on our agenda. Christie.
Okay. So this is, this discussion is about really focused on the capital outlook or the long-range capital outlook portion of the capital improvement plan. As the board is aware, we've talked about this for several years. Leah Talbot, and our former finance director, and I came and talked to you about an approach a couple of years ago. With some transition in the finance department, we hadn't come forward with this. And now we actually have started a process where we think that we're able to sort of better and very transparently show just the 5-year capital plan as well as the long-term capital outlook. So As you always do, you will receive a presentation about the budget and the capital plan at your next meeting as part of the budget hearing. So tonight is really more focused on the process and the methodology around what we've implemented this year, and to get some general concurrence, which would necessitate us to update our comprehensive fiscal management policies, which of course would go through the same process that we always go through. Finance team would recommend to Finance Advisory Committee. We would meet with AFC, and then AFC would recommend to Select Board for your approval. So as I mentioned, the capital improvement plan really is made up of sort of 3 sections, and that's how we've presented it. So there's the capital budget. That's for fiscal 27. You see the capital budget and multiple warrant articles on the warrant. Those are things that are coming to the town for their approval at the upcoming town meeting. Capital Expenditure Planning Committee focuses most of their time looking at the capital requests for the capital budget. There's a 5-year capital plan that's required by our charter. So we have always asked, or at least as long as I've been here, asked all the departments to submit any of their capital requests for the 5-year capital plan. Capital Planning Committee spends some time looking at future requests. There has been in the past sort of shuffling of requests depending on presentations and the outcome of scoring from the Capital Committee. And then the last piece, which is the newer piece, is the long-range capital outlook. So that's the 10 years beyond that 5-year capital plan. We have, over the past couple of years, started to gather information about that, what might be in that 10-year period. But this year we did a much more robust look at that. One thing that we added that we haven't had in the past is that before, we would mostly see requests for town funds, and that's all that was submitted as part of the capital plan. This year, we've added capital needs. So we're sort of trying to delineate capital requests, requesting funding. Capital needs are just additional capital needs that are not anticipated to require town funding. So examples of these are some of the projects that we've talked about, the transportation projects, where we would be going after grants. Capital needs might transfer into capital requests if there's a need for town funds, whether it be a match for a grant or the funding of the whole project. And so these have been listed out as capital needs on the capital improvement plan in order to prioritize where we're making our grant efforts, or where we might be directing mitigation efforts as we're talking to developers. So as we put together the capital improvement plan, some of these things, our priorities and our goals were really to be in alignment with our comprehensive fiscal management policies. So maintaining a balance of free cash from 5 to 7.5%, stabilization 5 to 7.5%, which is the total reserve. We always talk about this, is 10 to 15%. Retained earnings. We don't talk a lot about this, but in our policy we have a goal or a best practice of retaining 5% of our those respective operating budgets in retained earnings for those enterprise funds. Identifying all capital needs. Another reason for this is that we want to make sure that if people are thinking in 5 years, I need, I don't know, a ladder truck or a substation, not to just pick on the fire department, but we want to make sure that everyone's thinking about that. If the school is anticipating the need for a new school or an addition or a larger project, we want to make sure we're thinking about that, putting it on this plan, understanding that as we get closer to those years, more things may come up. And then really one of our goals was to really reduce or avoid increased debt. So looking at some funding options that would avoid additional borrowing. The process was this year, again, we asked all department heads to identify and submit all of their anticipated capital needs and capital requests over the next 15 years. So again, this includes projects anticipated to be funded through town funds, but also projects that would be seeking alternative funds. The capital requests were then scheduled out over the next 15 years. So this is something that's a little bit different. If you sat on the capital planning committee before, essentially what was happening is we in our office would receive all of these requests, and then they would really just be filtered directly to the Capital Expenditure Planning Committee. While the Capital Expenditure Planning Committee did see every request that came forward, one exercise that we did ahead of that was we took all of the capital requests and we scheduled them out so that we are maintaining those goals that we talked about earlier. So the 1 to 1.5% of our general fund operating budget, making sure that we're staying within that in our use of free cash, making sure that we're spreading out borrowing, and that we're looking at projects that might necessitate borrowing to be scheduled in a year where other borrowing might fall off, short-term debt might be paid down, things like that. So we did that work. We then met again with the department heads and we talked about the things, the requests that we have moved around. That was based purely on financials. So the department head might say that, you know, that makes sense financially, but that doesn't really work practically because of, you know, XYZ. So then everything was handed over to the Capital Expenditure Planning Committee for their next level of review. So in addition to using free cash, which we always use for our capital requests, we've identified in this new methodology 2 additional funding sources. One is the Capital Stabilization Fund. So we've had a Capital Stabilization Fund for several years. You'll see in your budget book, there's about $60,000 in there. It was initially intended to fund large fire apparatus. Also, I think at one point for the Nurse Street Cemetery, Westland Cemetery. And that was funded initially through Raise and Appropriate. What we would like to do and what we've talked about all along is sort of resurrect this Capital Stabilization Fund so that we're saving for some of these larger projects so that we can avoid borrowing. So we know when you look at the next 15 years that there are a few projects coming up that might be $2 million to $4 million that we're anticipating that, and we would like to avoid borrowing for those projects, and therefore we would prefer to draw from this Capital Stabilization Fund. Capital Stabilization Fund would have to be funded by town meeting, meaning town meeting has to vote to transfer money in, and town meeting has to vote to transfer money out. So it's equally transparent. It would all have to go through town meeting, but it would really take some of our reserves and put it in a bucket where it is intended for specifically capital needs. So the proposal is that when we look at that 1 to 1.5% of the general fund operating budget, you'll see in fiscal 27, we're proposing multi-million-dollar capital budget, but it actually is about $250,000 less than what we estimate 1.5% of the general fund operating budget to be. And so we're proposing that $250,000 be moved from free cash into this Capital Stabilization Fund to hold it for a future capital project that we would otherwise borrow for. The idea, looking at the additional funding sources, which is the Capital Improvement Fund, you'll see that we would no longer need that Capital Stabilization Fund at a point at which the Capital Improvement Fund begins to accrue a balance. So sorry. So this is a little bit tough to see, but this is actually on within everyone's budget books, and this is really illustrating what I just mentioned. So the total capital requests for fiscal 27 is just over $15 million, and the way that we're showing how everything would be funded is new detail that we haven't shown before. So we're very clearly showing how much money we would use out of ambulance receipts reserved for a new ambulance. We're showing how much of it is funded through retained earnings, how much of it would be an enterprise borrow, all information that we've had before, but just really showing here in a detailed and concise way. And then we're anticipating just under $9 million in a borrow, which are the school-related projects, and then the use of free cash for the other projects. So we're estimating right now that the top of that range, that 1.5%, is about 2.1 million. So we'd have again that 250,000 remaining. And that was really the work that we did, was to make sure that we're not in the negative. We do have 1 year in the 15 years at FY30 where we're showing that negative. There's a question about whether or not one of those projects would be needed. And certainly this is a calculation based on the operating budget, which we're just estimating going forward. So that the second funding source that everyone is familiar with is the Capital Improvement Fund. Currently, that plays a critical role in our debt strategy. So the money that we receive, just as a reminder, the money that goes into the Capital Improvement Fund is any taxes received from the Pulte project up at the former state hospital. That was created through a vote of town meeting by approval through the legislature to sort of set aside those funds. And those funds can be used for anything for which we would borrow, as well as debt. And so in 2020, we created that debt strategy, which we spent a lot of time talking about, the need to try to maintain debt service at the fiscal 20 levels, about $5.6 million, in order to create stability in the budget. So we've continued to do that. And use the funding for that. That is authorized by town meeting every year. That language is in the motion that it's approved at town meeting. And the fiscal policies reflect that debt strategy. As we have declining debt, there will be a point at which that money is no longer needed to maintain that 5.6 million, and therefore that money would start to accrue within the Capital Improvement Fund. Then that money would be available for town meeting to authorize payment of larger projects. So you'll see when you look in your the capital plan that we're currently estimating that we would start accruing in fiscal 35 at about $5.6 million in that 1 year to be available for use in the following year, fiscal 36.
Chris, just a question on that. So that we won't need the capital stabilization fund, but will we still follow, or is the intent still to follow the policy if we have excess free cash based on policy? Will we then put it into this capital improvement fund, or is it not to spend that free cash?
Just not to spend the free cash, because you can't transfer money into the capital improvement fund. I believe it can only be funded through taxes from that section of town.
So you wouldn't continue to fund into the stabilization fund? That's
correct. Because if you look at how quickly that builds, you have about $5 million every year, and so I think you wouldn't. The capital stabilization fund, as we're proposing it, is going to grow it more slowly, and would just be available sort of as an alternative funding source until we start building that much larger fund in the capital improvement fund. So this slide here just shows the growth of that capital improvement fund. You'll see that there's several small borrows. Just as a reminder, when we created the debt strategy, we were very clear that that debt strategy and the estimates were based on projects that had been approved through March of 2019. So really the last project that was part of that debt strategy was the Fales school project. So it did not anticipate the library project, and it did not anticipate the purchase of the community center. However, we've continued to work through this debt strategy and apply it to all borrowing that we have done since the debt strategy was put in place. Oops. So when you add additional borrows, certainly that has an impact on the point at which the capital improvement fund would start to accumulate a balance. So you'll see in your plan that we have some roof projects coming up on this town meeting for the school department. I think there's a couple other small projects, and then in fiscal 30, because of debt falling off at that point and short-term debt being paid down, that's where we have currently scheduled the first phase of the community center. I think that is a discussion that this board needs to have in a more detailed way, related to other funding sources, because if you can reduce that borrow, then it changes the impact and potentially could move up that project. But this just shows the forecasted debt percent of general fund budget. This is inclusive of some of those proposed additional borrows. So the community center is in here. The library is in here. And so what you're seeing is that we're following our fiscal policy. So our fiscal policy related to debt is that we have a floor of 2% of our general fund budget and a ceiling of 10%, with the preferred spot being around 7% of our general fund budget. So we are well within that, and we're seeing that declining over time based on why we asked everyone to give us what they were aware of so that we could make these projections based on what we know right now we would be developing.
And Christy, you said the community center is factored in FY29? Is that what you said?
Fiscal 30. FY30.
30, I'm sorry.
So that would be the annual town meeting in March of 2030, and then debt would hit in fiscal 31. And then, as I mentioned before, capital needs are also listed within the capital improvement plan, which is new. Again, the idea to prioritize grant application and scheduling work according to department capacity. As we know, some of these larger projects that we've been talking about being grant funding is great, but we also need to make sure that we have the staff to oversee the project. We want to make sure that we're not competing for those grant funds when we're going to different state programs such as MassWorks or Mass Trails or others. But again, they would need to transfer into a capital request if there was any amount of money that was needed going forward from the town. And then just for next steps, assuming that this approach makes sense to the board, we would work with the finance team to amend the capital planning section of the policy, which would really just identify that additional step that we took to sort of schedule out projects, taking into account debt, and then also the fiscal management policies. And then we would also identify the purpose and use of the capital stabilization fund, how it's funded, as well as the capital improvement fund. We would probably need to clarify that debt strategy. There will be a point at which, again, we'll need to change that language when we no longer need to apply it to current debt service. Once we certify free cash and retained earnings for use in fiscal 26, we need to confirm alignment with that policy. That'll happen in the coming weeks. And then finalize the operating budget and debt numbers to update the capital improvement fund estimates. So there is an article on this version of the warrant to do that sort of first step, which is transfer that additional free cash into the capital stabilization fund.
Great. That's it.
That's it.
Yep. Okay. Questions or comments?
So as the representative to Capital Expenditures Planning Committee, I first want to say thank you very much to Christy for her guidance through that process. And thank you to the residents who participated in that process. It was a great conversation that I think occurred over a number of weeks to get to support what Christy has been talking about tonight. I would also just say that just for the community's knowledge, I've got the comprehensive fiscal policy in front of me, and I just want to quote a small paragraph out of it, just so people understand how important this is. Managing debt burden, the town recognizes that maintaining debt levels within industry standards allows the town to more easily maintain its credit standing, as well as ensuring the community will have affordable repayment obligation on taxpayers. The town will endeavor to manage debt so as not to exceed the 10% ratios of total debt service as a percentage of the total general fund expenditures. And this is exactly what we're doing here. So this is really great and very important work. I will share with the board, I met with our town manager yesterday to ask a few questions about this. And really the core question that I asked was around if there's any potential risk to the community's operational expenditures as a result of potentially moving free cash money that isn't part of the borrow to get to that 1.5%. Is there any risk there? And Christy, I'll let you answer that question because
Sure.
I posed it to you.
So my response was that I don't see any risk. It continues to be money held in reserve, and it's available for capital purchases and projects, which is what we use free cash for currently. It just restricts it a little bit so that you wouldn't be able to use that money as you might like for a study or something else that we might use free cash for. Certainly if our free cash levels started were much lower than our fiscal management policies, we would have to revisit our ability to move money into capital stabilization. But that I think would be a larger conversation as well, because we'd also have to identify how many projects we actually think that we can fund in that year.
Well, just for clarification, the transfer of funds into the capital stabilization fund is only when it's in excess of what, through the process of capital planning, in excess up to that 1.5%.
That's the proposal, yes.
Right.
Yep.
So if we were in a position where free cash was dwindling, we'd probably be taking, I think what I heard you say, we're taking a holistic look at how much are we actually spending on capital projects. And so it's not just about the free cash.
It would be a much bigger conversation.
Okay. A following question about that. Did I hear you say that it's at some point, because of the capital stabilization, no, I told you I have trouble with this. Because of the capital improvement fund and the rate at which that will grow, it may make sense at some point, future board, to determine at what rate to fund the capital stabilization fund.
The proposal that,
Well,
sorry.
it wouldn't necessarily, I mean, it could go away, but
so I'm proposing that it go away.
Oh, okay.
Because if you go back to, if you go back here, if these numbers are correct and that's how it all moves forward, we're only funding the capital stabilization fund at about $100,000 to $200,000 a year.
Yep.
If that, I think because the capital improvement fund would be growing at a rate of 5 million plus per year, I'm not sure that there would be a benefit to maintaining that capital
so
stabilization.
that money that would be going here would just stay into free cash.
Would just stay in free cash. Yep.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, this is great.
Yeah.
Sean, anything?
And I'm supportive of it, what is being proposed, sorry.
No, I think we'll go through this. We're going to talk in a couple weeks going through the capital plan. So I'm comfortable with what you've come up with here. Thank you, Kristen.
Mark?
Yeah, I have no comments other than great job. I think anything that we can do to reduce our borrowing will help save us in the long run. So, I'm for this.
No, thanks. I echo it. I think great work. I'm the nerd who loves this stuff around money. I think it's a very, I think, intelligent process, and makes sense. And I look forward again to our meeting coming up to go through more in terms of the numbers, but fully supportive of what you put forth. I think it makes total sense.
Great. Thank you. So our next step will just be to make amendments to the policy and bring that through the process back to you after it's been vetted through the Advisory Finance Committee.
Oh, so I know you spoke with the AFC last night. Did this come up last night or?
Not specifically. I did mention, I believe I mentioned that I was doing this presentation this evening and encouraged them to watch it. And I think they actually asked a couple questions about capital stabilization. So it's on their radar for sure.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Next on our agenda, I think it's you, Christy, again, Westborough TV Communication Initiatives.
So this is to close out one of the fiscal 26 goals that the board had put forward. The board's goal was to enhance communications with Westborough TV. So we had action items that the board had approved at a subsequent meeting after setting the goals. And the first action item was for me to meet with department heads to just get ideas of how they might utilize Westborough TV to communicate. And so I did that in November. And then I met with Westborough TV and we went over some of the ideas that had been brainstormed at the department head meeting. And then we met with Westborough TV staff after that, after they've had a chance to look through it. So what you have in your packet it's really just a draft, but it was kind of what was agreed to. So I'm just trying to pull it up so that we can. So we talked a lot about Westborough TV, as you know, already does a lot of things to support the town. So we talked about the goal of informing, engaging, and connecting to the community, and then potentially streamlining some processes around like FAQs and things like that. So we've actually laid out sort of Q1, I think, of 2026, where Westborough TV will be spending their time doing the EDC videos. That the EDC Awards Banquet is January 30th, and they do a great job with those videos. And that's not new, but that is definitely a way that they support the town. And then they're also working with Chief Minardi, doing a day in the life of a police officer. I know that they've shared some other videos that they've done with the police department. They've done a lot of videos with the Public Works Department. They have a whole series, 16 total that they're working on. They've worked on with DPW. So opportunities there with other departments. One of the things that we've talked about many times, but we haven't done, and so we hope to do it this year, is to create some informational videos related to articles at town meeting. We think that it's a really good opportunity for folks that might have sort of articles of higher interest to work with Westborough TV to create these short videos. I know that they are, and this is on the list as well, they're working with Jim Ball, who's the co-chair of the Community Preservation Committee, to do a short video that he potentially might even play at town meeting, just to introduce the process, because it's brand new in terms of spending that money that we've been collecting under the CPA. So we are going to work on some short videos to have at town meeting, and then we could play them through our website and social media. Also some additional educational videos. So I know they want to work with our moderator, John Arnold, just again, to do sort of an overview of town meeting, what that is, what the legislative function is of the town meeting. They've already been working with Kendra Faldetta, our senior social services director, which we're hoping to complete this month, a video on how to use the WRTA mobility management system. And so, how do you schedule a ride, and what is that experience like? And so they're working on that. And then they also want to work with our town clerk on election and voting information. And then some other things that we've been talking about is really just creating a lot of information about the community center. There's not currently anything on the warrant. There's nothing anticipated right now. Certainly this board will have more conversation about it, but the point is, let's talk about what's going on at the community center, because I think we get a lot of folks, like Jen said, who know we have it, but maybe haven't used it. And so we kind of want to showcase the good things that are being done there so that people are aware of them. And then also, I know she wants to work with our library director to keep people up to speed on the library renovations, maybe see that process as it's going through. And then one of the things that we want to do, but we haven't really fully vetted it out, is we previously had the 1581, which was a really great opportunity for department heads to come and talk about the work that they were doing. Is there opportunity to have someone, it says town manager show, but it's not going to be me, have somebody in the community who's interested in hosting a show that might be monthly, maybe the umbrella of What's New Westborough, which is our newsletter, and just talk to folks about, items of interest and timely topics. One thing that we've heard is that there's a lot of towns that are doing podcasts. And so one thing that Karen said that the Westborough TV could do is they could actually make that show an audio file and people could listen to it as a podcast. So we would just need to keep that in mind when we're talking about all the PowerPoint presentations that we tend to put up. And then And then we were talking about doing the library did this, and other departments are interested in creating some short FAQ videos. So really just another way to communicate things that we're frequently asked, so that people are able to access that information in a different way. And then we just talked about doing potentially spotlighting employees. So that's something that I know that they were interested in as well. So again, I think that this is this form is flexible and dynamic. And I think that this is just to close out the goal that we've had the conversation. These are things that we're working on. We want to continue to work with them and really leverage their access to the community in a way that we haven't before.
Great. Any questions, comments?
Yeah, just a couple. So thank you for laying out the plan. I like it. Just a quick comment on the 01581. So Christy and I, this is, for those that don't know, it's a show that I started, and just because of time constraints, as well as feeling that while I love doing it, as a select board member, it's probably not ideal for me to do it. I think it would be better if it's someone not on the board hosting it. It doesn't get into questions around, you're kind of talking about something that's going to come before it as, a discussion, as well as maybe someone could ask some other questions that, like, I don't get like multiple cracks at the apple, so to speak. So Christy and I have talked about that. And I think it's great that the town working with someone else in the community. So looking for anyone who's interested in maybe doing that kind of work to collaborate with Christy in Westborough TV. I know it was mentioned earlier tonight during open forum. It is something that I've thought about in the past. I know this board has talked about it at various points when we did our committee handbook. It would be helpful, I think, for this board to understand, as our relationship with Westborough TV evolves, what is the true capacity beyond what you've outlined here, which I think is important, for Westborough TV to provide additional coverage of other committee meetings. I think the work that they do is priceless. People can go back, streamlines, we know all the benefits. I just don't know what their capacity is given what they already have. So understanding that, and then I'm not sure who would help with prioritization of okay, we've got 30 boards, we're covering 15. I don't know if that falls to us. Who would that fall to?
I think our first step is probably just to understand if they're able to cover all of them, and then we can see
adjust
if there
it. Okay.
needs to be.
But
a
I think it's
priority.
worth.
I think it's a
looking
great idea. I think it's understanding the capacity, but also probably simultaneously understanding what committees we have that are not being filmed.
Right.
Right. Yep. Thanks. Thank you.
I think we also have to factor in, not every location is film ready. So to bring in a portable camera might be a factor for them. So there's a lot of moving parts. If a meeting is in a conference room that doesn't have video capabilities, are they going to be able to get a camera there to film it? Or, do we need to make sure that every meeting is in Memorial Hall or the Great Hall or what have you?
Yep.
Yeah, and we have definitely increased the number of meetings that we cover. Senior Center, Council on Aging, in the last couple of years, we've added that. The 250th is covered. So it might not be as big a number of ones that aren't covered that we can talk to them about.
And I know that not everyone loves being on TV, right? But it really is, as part of your public service, it's important. You're putting in a lot of time and effort, and to be able to refer back to those meetings is important. So anyway, thanks.
Great. Anything else?
I'd just like to say thank you, Shelby, for your work on the 1581 over the years. Fantastic work. And then I just would ask a quick question.
I was nominated for a Golden Globe. Did you know that?
Oh,
No.
I was going to Pulitzer Prize, but okay. Anyway,
You didn't win?
this is wonderful work. I really look forward to seeing all of these things done over time, obviously. But is it correct to expect that like links of these like FAQs you mentioned, that those will be put up on departments' websites as opposed to just generally go out onto YouTube,
Oh,
like
yes.
Westborough TV?
Yeah,
will actually,
yeah.
okay, that's
All
great.
of these things, yeah.
Okay.
For example, I mean, if we start to create videos or tours of the community center, as an example, we would expect that that would be on the Recreation Department's website.
Good.
And then, depending on what we're talking about, make sure we're advertising that out also, just that it's now available and people can come look at it.
Great. Thank you.
All of the videos that DPW has done are on their website, just as an example.
Great. Anything else? Okay. Again, thank you, Christy, for that. Next, we have reappointments that came before us. Speaking of Westborough TV, these are two reappointments to the Westborough TV Board of Directors, Ken West and John Gallina. We did have the letter from Karen Henderson. I would entertain a motion or any comments or questions folks may have.
Yeah, so I would move to appoint Ken West and John Gallina to the Westborough TV Board of Directors with a term expiring December 31, 2029.
Seconded.
Any comments or questions? Not, oops.
I was just going to say thank you very much to Mr. West or Mr. Gallinow for being willing to do it. It's a very valuable resource as we just discussed in the community, so thank you.
Okay, roll call vote. Mark?
Yeah, just real quick though.
Yeah.
Could we amend it to reappoint? I know it's.
Oh, I'm sorry.
semantics, but
I thought that's what,
they
sorry, I
Sorry.
missed that. Yep.
As amended, reappoint. Thank you, Mark.
Seconded.
Okay, I vote yes. Silverberg, yes.
Shelby?
Marshall, yes.
Keo, yes.
Welch, yes.
And Johnson, yes, 5-0, 5 being present. Okay, next.
So I think Kim is going to jump on. She had a family commitment, but I think she's planning to jump on. So if we can, if you don't mind waiting.
Skipping over that
a couple
one?
Minutes. Yeah.
Sure.
Minutes.
Minutes.
I want to do minutes.
Love to.
So we have December 16th PM session and January 6th meeting that was in our package.
Do we have AM2?
I'm sorry, we have AM.
Yep.
AM's, sorry, it was after PM. Like that. Yeah.
Okay.
So those are the three we have.
So I would move to approve the minutes of December 16th, 2025, the AM session, December 16th, the PM session, and January 6th, 2026.
Seconded.
Any comments, corrections? Not, roll call vote. Mark?
Silverberg, yes.
Shelby?
Marshall, yes.
Keo, yes.
Welch, yes.
And Johnson, yes. That's 5-0, 5 being present. Do you want to jump into the town manager report?
Sure. As you're all aware, back in August of 24, Chief Purcell and I came before you to talk about the potential to use land that's currently owned by the state for a future satellite fire station or substation. We sent a letter off under the board signature, making that request to the Commonwealth, and subsequently we've been working with MassDOT, providing them information, additional materials. On January 12th, so on Monday, we were notified that MassDOT has surplus the property in order for the town to lease the property. And so there's several conditions that go along with that, and a lease that would need to be negotiated and worked out. In addition, there's the requirement for a fair market value appraisal in order for us to identify what the lease payment would be. So lots of work to do there, but as you can see, it's been a while that we've been working on this, so it's a good opportunity for the town.
So more to come on that one.
Yep. The town clerk, she was here earlier, but the reminder that the town election's on Tuesday, March 10th at the high school, and nomination papers for the annual town election are available to pull through this Thursday, January 15th. The annual town census forms have been mailed to all households. Included with the census is the annual dog licensing form. Dog owners must license their dogs by March 31st. Residents who no longer have a dog that was licensed in 25 are asked to contact the clerk's office. In the library, they've hosted a legislative breakfast this morning, welcoming Senator Mike Moore and Representative Kate Donahue and numerous library supporters for a discussion on the vital role libraries play across the Commonwealth and this year's legislative agenda. In collaboration with the Westborough Library Foundation and the Friends, they're excited to host Putt for the Library on January 30th and 31st. So the library will be transformed into an 18-hole indoor mini golf course for everyone to enjoy. Friday night's tickets will be ticketed at 21 plus evening, featuring live music. On Saturday from 10 to 2, mini golf will be free and open to all ages, held in conjunction with the teen volunteer run Winterfest, which includes activities for kids and families. And then the library repair project continues to move ahead on schedule, with completion anticipated in September. In the planning department, through a DLTA or direct local technical assistance grant applied for by CMRPC, the town will be working with CMRPC to host a training session this spring on how to organize and conduct a walk audit in our local community. During a walk audit, participants evaluate the walking environment and identify issues that impact safety and comfort. Walk audits will assist in collecting public input that will inform the upcoming active transportation plan and improve community walkability. They're also excited to extend the training opportunity to surrounding communities, including Shrewsbury, Northborough, Grafton, and Berlin. Regional walk audit training will be an opportunity to collaborate and establish long-lasting partnerships with nearby communities.
Great. I just highlighted, it was going to be in my comments, but on the Library Foundation and Friends event, the Putt for the Library, the reason the Friday night, like last year's 21 plus, to the question came about to Jen Kirkland, that will be an alcohol event like it was last year. So fun.
Alcohol and golf.
Alcohol and mini golf.
It's a lot of fun.
It is a ton of fun. So.
Yeah.
So that is in process and should be a good time. That is only for the night event. There's a family event the next day. Great. I see Kim joined. So Kim, if you're ready, you can hear us. We'll turn back to item 10, which is retiree insurance premium contribution.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to recuse myself from this. Not that I'm in any way currently related to the retirement association, but it does have a potential impact in the future of my wife's position with the town. So I will recuse myself.
Thank you. Hello, Kim.
Hi.
So you're on.
Okay. Okay. So the item before you tonight is to request the board to authorize the town to slightly increase its premium contribution for our retirees who subscribe to our Medicare supplement plan. Just a little background and context. The retiree plans renew on January 1st. We worked with our insurance consultant in getting renewal rates from our current carrier, Blue Cross Blue Shield. Back in October, we met with the board based on the rates that we had from Blue Cross Blue Shield at the time. Moved forward, got notification out to our retirees, and subsequent to that, Blue Cross Blue Shield came back to the town through our consultant, advised that they had made an error, and the contract that we needed to execute to maintain our retirees insurance reflected a monthly premium increase of just over $5 per subscriber. The town's contribution rate, the town contributes 75%, the employee contributes 25%. That's, I believe, $1.39 a month for the employee in the increase. And until we have sufficient time to both notify the employees and make adjustments, because many of our retirees have their premiums deducted from their retirement checks, and those monies are sent directly to the town. There's just a lag before all of that can be processed. So we're seeking to have the town cover that cost for the first 3 months of the calendar year. And that ends up being an additional premium cost of about $777 a month, or about $2,300 for the 3-month period.
And this is something that can be covered in current budget.
Yes, it can be covered in the current budget, and then that additional premium will, as of April 1st, it will be split back to the 75-25% split. However, in the meantime, we didn't want to, it just administratively, the town covering the cost for that period seemed to make it to be the most prudent action.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Comments and questions from the board?
I mean, I think this is the right solution. I know that when we had executive session discussions, I voiced my frustration about how this was handled not by our consultant, to be clear, but by Blue Cross. And I want that just to the public to understand I wasn't alone. Quite frankly, I think they should be eating it, but it doesn't work that way in the insurance world, so we're stuck with it. And so I'm supportive of the board taking care of this for 3 months while we get through this transition. And thankfully, it's $1.39, a month additional, so it's not $139, which seems to be the trend with insurance.
Thanks for that. Is there a motion?
I would move to authorize the town to absorb the retiree 25% portion of the $5.54 monthly premium increase, or $1.39 per month per subscriber for all Blue Cross Blue Shield Medicare Supplement Plan subscribers, covering the 3-month period of January through March 2026.
Second.
Okay, any other questions? If not, roll call vote. Mark?
Ziltenberg, yes.
Shelby?
Marshall, yes.
Keough, yes.
And Johnson, yes. That's 4-0 with 4 voting members present due to the recusal of Select Board Member Welsh on that one. So that passes. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
Okay, next we'll move to item 11 on the agenda, which is the draft annual town meeting warrant.
So this is version 2 of the town meeting warrant. And it's also available. It's available in hard copy in this room for the public, but it's also available on the website. I'll just go through them quickly, and I think it's helpful to hear. There's a few that I don't think we'll hear from at the budget summit, so just making sure that I'll ask you if you want to hear a presentation. So the first is the town election, and then the town reports. Those don't require a presentation. Article 3, prior year bills. That's something that we've just been regularly leaving on the warrant in case something comes up, but we don't have anything identified at this time. Fiscal 26 reserve fund. This article is typically on here in the last few years in order for the finance committee to restore any transfers that they've made out of their reserve fund. Last night, they did make a transfer out of the reserve fund of $50,000 for the legal budget. They approved my request for that those funds. And then there's also an article here to add additional funding to the legal budget in order to cover expenses. As a reminder, that's related largely to litigation that we've experienced. However, I will say that for fiscal 27, we are proposing an increase to the legal budget. And then Article 6 is the fiscal 27 operating budget. Article 7, this is again a regular. It's a regularly recurring article. We haven't moved it into that section, but this is for the community preservation program. Town meeting is required to move money into the different buckets that are required under the the Community Preservation Act. So that table will be filled in a future version. Article 8 is the revolving fund article, so we have to regularly reauthorize the revolving funds. So all of these have already been, there's no change to the revolving funds. They've already been approved by town meeting, and they're sitting here for reauthorization. Article 9, regularly recurring articles. Again, we set up the reserve funds, a restocking of Sandra Pond, the 4th of July block party, the small business grant program through the EDC, and then in recent years, the elections and town meeting, which we took out of the budget, and now we fund through free cash. So I guess in any of those articles, because a lot of them are typically on the warrant, my question would be if, just let me know if you're anticipating any sort of presentation from any of those articles. Article 10 is a community preservation plan. So this has been set up similar to the capital expenditure plan. This is the first time that the CPC is recommending awarding any of their funds. So they did go through a process. Jim Ball is actually coming to the budget summit and is going to give a brief presentation about the process that they went through, just for the select board and the finance committee to understand the process that they went through. But ultimately it yielded these 4 projects that are here on the warrant, and they do require a vote of town meeting. And so I anticipate having each of these folks come forward to give a presentation specifically related to their project. Jim is going to give more of a presentation about the overall process that they went through.
And Chrissy, Article 7 is in its position because it's going to be a regularly recurring update from the CPC, an action that they would take on a regular basis. That's why that's there, and this is now at 11. Is that correct?
Yeah, so Article 7 is required because town meeting has to move the money into the buckets, and then this is the actual awarding of the funds.
Right. Got it. Yep.
I will just note that I looked at a few different towns and how they create the community preservation articles, and one thing I noted, which I think is a good conversation for CPC to have, is that at least in one other town, there's a deadline by which the money needs to be spent. And I think and so I did include that here. This is with other communities. I saw that there was about a 2-year deadline. That seems reasonable to me. And it also makes that money available if it's not spent. It also gives the committee the authority to extend that deadline if there's circumstances that they think are appropriate. So that's something that they need to decide, but that's how it's drafted here for their consideration.
Christy, can I ask a question on that? So 3 of those 4 community preservation articles are pretty straightforward, but the school playground, that's a case where CPC is only funding part of that, and the school is going to be requesting I think $650,000. I don't see an article in the draft yet for that, but wouldn't it make more sense for those to be presented as one article?
So actually,
the only reason I say that is because you go ahead.
It's actually not the school. If you look at their application that they made to CPC, they're anticipating coming forward for capital funds next year. So if you look at the fiscal 28 capital plan, you'll see that there is a Hastings playground and parking lot article for $1.5 million. And I believe that is what they would be applying this $150,000 to.
But they would need this that far.
Sorry. No, to that point, and I completely agree with your time limit suggestion, because obviously if this were to pass a town meeting, that $150,000 would be set aside for the Hastings playground. And if that future article doesn't pass, it would either have to come back with another warrant article to release it, or if we did incorporate a time frame, then it would go back into the community preservation fund. Okay.
Yeah. So from just looking at the application, I wasn't I'm not on that committee, and so I don't attend their meetings, but looking at the application, it looks like the school is anticipating that total project cost is $800,000 for the playground. And so they are anticipating the need of $650,000 for the playground, but that's been bundled with the parking lot as well. And so that's that $1.5 million project that you'll see in fiscal 28.
So to Mark's point, though, if it gets approved here, but that article next year does not get approved, I'd assume they,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they have, I don't know how they arrived at the 150. If there's something that they can do with 150, that's something that I think the school would present to you when
Okay.
they're talking about that article. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, I know we're going to
Well,
discuss.
the original request was for, yeah, I'm sorry. The
No, go
original
ahead.
request was for the whole amount, but they aren't eligible for the whole amount. You know, because the playground is not open to the public for certain hours of the day, they could not get the whole project funded by CPA funds.
Okay.
You know, it has to be publicly accessible. So the 150 represents a pro rata at a share of, you know, when it is open to the public of that, as far as what that project is. But I was expecting them to come forward with the Hastings request at this town meeting, and I don't think that was ever clear to me in the CPC meetings that they were not going to be requesting this money from town meeting until next year.
Yeah, I don't know. I did see it laid out in the application, but I don't know what was shared with the individual members that they're looking at the spring 27 request. So then I went and looked at the capital plan, and I noted that's that playground and parking lot project that they're requesting. So
Mark, I'd be curious as to whether or not the school's aware of the new and maybe you know the answer to this, whether or not they're aware of the duration of the funds when and if it's approved by town meeting, having that deadline, and whether or not they want to reconsider their application to apply it for next year. I suspect that most community members would want to see a combined funding article, meaning that it would include both the CPC funds as well as any raise and appropriate to pay for the full thing, is to be one article. But if it's not, and they choose to move forward with it this year, I would hope that the CPC would actually put some language into that article that suggests that it's contingent on the approval of the future article at next year's town meeting if they so choose that path.
Well, I think Christie's suggestion about putting a time frame on spending it essentially solves that. But I'm just wondering why we would put this article on this year's warrant.
I agree.
I think at the budget summit, you'll hear from, at the budget summit, I know you will hear from Jim Ball, who will talk, I think would be able to speak potentially to that. And then also our superintendent will be presenting the article at the budget summit. So
yeah, good question to ask.
Okay, enough time on this.
yeah. The next 4 articles are capital articles. This is different than how we've done it in the past. This is just a suggestion, and if you want to go back to having it be one article, we can certainly do that. What I did was when we worked on the capital improvement plan, we started, instead of breaking it out by department, we were breaking it out by essentially function or category. So Article 11 is capital improvement plan, and it's all vehicles. So that's across all departments. Article 12 is capital improvement plan, technology and equipment across all departments. Article 13 is facilities related. And then, as we have done in the past, Article 14 breaks out the borrowing articles just because they have a different quantum of vote requirement.
Christy, just a note under Article 11. It's starting off with E. Should start off with A.
Oh, I already got an email.
Oh, all right. Just noticed that.
Yeah.
I like the organization. That, you know, I think that will help voters to think about.
I do too. I think it's a nice structure to it. I would say though that the one question that comes to my mind is really more for our town moderator in regards to I'm hopeful that there might be an opportunity to bundle these as the lead into the articles say that they can be voted as a group. I'd like to understand from the town moderator as to which articles he'll actually entertain because as we all know, we've gotten a lot of feedback in regards to the duration of town meeting. So does this help us have that conversation better, right? And I'd like to understand that a little bit.
I think that's optimistic and a great question.
I think it's optimistic
I think
too.
people like to see the pictures and want to know all about the vehicles,
Yeah.
as well as the projects. And that's the right.
I agree, but
Yep.
why not ask?
Yep.
So to that end, we could bring John Arnold to a meeting.
Okay. But we don't need to flag these because we're going to discuss all these capital projects anyway.
Yes, so most of them you'll have the department head in front of you at the budget summit.
Okay.
There's a couple, recreation, finance, those will probably come to your first meeting in February.
Okay.
Article 15 is that capital stabilization fund, which we talked about earlier tonight. So that would be that additional free cash that wasn't used moving into capital stabilization. Article 16 is hazardous tree removal. So this is coming from the Conservation Commission and Community Land Trust. And so we'll have, I assume you'll want the Conservation Director has a couple different articles, so she'll come and discuss these with you. Article 17 is a public safety organizational assessment and strategic planning. So we talk a lot about the organizational assessment that was done for the fire department in 2018, also the staffing study that was done for the police department in 2019. I think we've gotten to a point where we've implemented a lot, especially of the fire department study, because that was just a broader scope of work to create those. And so in talking to both the chiefs and sort of next steps, we talked about having one article that would fund both studies, but they would be full organizational assessments as opposed to sort of the more limited study that the police department previously had. So Chief Minardi has gone out and gotten some quotes. What we're talking about is the end result would actually be two separate studies, but the value of having them together by the same consultant is that the community engagement piece could be done at the same time. And also any sort of focus groups or anything like that.
Love that.
I will say what is not on here is I also talked to the superintendent about having a similar article for an efficiency study between the town and the school. We talked about that a lot. And we had hoped that it would be funded through that grant program, the Community Compact, but that was not funded by the administration this year. I don't anticipate it being funded again. So what we identified was some of the communities that did get that grant for that exact purpose. It was about $75,000 to $100,000. We'll get a better estimate. What I had talked to our superintendent about is having potentially a joint article. And so I know the school committee is going to talk about it tomorrow. So it's not on here. I know this, I believe you're all interested in
Part of our goals.
pursuing that. Yeah.
So I think it's
Okay.
absolutely.
So assuming that the school committee is interested, then we would put another article on that would be a joint article.
Any concerns with that? I just highlight that it is one of our goals. We've talked about it a lot.
Yep.
Patrick and I had conversations on this prior. I'm very supportive of it.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay, great.
cool.
Thanks.
Article 18 is an additional revolving account. This is for the electric vehicle program. So we received some funds from the electric vehicle, the charging stations at the country club. And so that money would be available to further support that program.
Does it to fund the senior transportation program?
Electric vehicle charger.
Is that header for the
Oh, you're looking at version 1, I think. 'Cause I
Oh.
definitely had that typo in there.
Okay, yeah, I
Yeah.
wasn't able to connect to the internet. That was my new
There's
computer.
copy of
there's
it.
That's all
copies.
right. That's okay. That's
Well, there's some new ones on here, I think, since
okay.
one.
All right, I'll go get it.
Article 19 is a request for a transfer of property. back in 2016, town meeting authorized the select board to acquire the 115 East Main Street, which is adjacent to the Hastings Elementary School. We've had some conversation about some work that the school department has done to identify ways that they could improve the traffic within that site, as well as safety. I actually thought, my memory was that it was under the control of the school, but it's not. So I got a letter, and we can have further conversation. I got a letter from school committee's council making the request that we transfer this property. So this is on here for discussion, but
Yeah, just my recollection. That's the reason we bought it is because of its adjacency to the school for future school use.
Yep.
To me, this makes sense, but we can definitely discuss it.
Yep. Okay. Article 20 is also probably kind of we haven't talked about it before. I actually came across an email from our former town clerk, Wendy Mickle, from 2022, where she had suggested that other communities were passing bylaws that set a deadline by which someone can submit a citizen's petition. And so I talked to our current town clerk, and so she did a survey of the Town Clerks Association just to see what other communities might have that. And she did find that other communities do set deadlines. One of the benefits of setting a deadline is that the town clerk's office has time to certify all the signatures. We have time to make sure it gets on the warrant appropriately. You have time for the finance committee and the select board to vet those petitions. So right now, we don't have any language about when they're due. So they're just due by the time we close the warrant. And we have had situations where we get the petitions the day the warrant is closing, which is it's difficult. And so the proposal here is no later than 60 calendar days prior to town meeting, which would just give us a little additional time. But we have never talked about it before. So if that's something that the board's not interested in, we just, Debbie and I wanted to bring it forward as an option.
I think we should have a conversation about it.
Yeah.
I think it might be brief, but we should talk about it.
No, I think we should.
Yeah, I'd be interested where the 60 days comes from. That seems a little long for me. Like I'm just thinking we're in, 45 is sort of.
It was, what she found is, I think it's 45 to 90.
Okay.
But yeah, we can provide
Let's have a
all of
discussion.
that.
Yeah.
Okay. Article 21 is a long-term lease for golf carts. That was done back in 2020 because it was advantageous financially to do a long-term lease, and town meeting has to approve a lease of any length above 3 years. I had asked town council if we could rely on that 2020 vote for this new upcoming contract, and he said no. So we have to have it back on here.
And is
I
that
think that would be a good one to just have a discussion so we understand the difference in pricing and all that.
Yep.
Because it's going to come to.
and is that funded solely through fees or through
That this particular one was funded through the enterprise fund. So, yep,
okay,
the golf,
which is funded through user fees?
Yes.
right.
Okay, so
And that
understanding the numbers around that, if it's 100% or
Including cart fees.
that's what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is covered. It's not anything that goes to the taxpayer, although this is not asking for fees. It's the lease agreement, but I think just understanding
Yeah.
the difference 3-5 year, why they're doing it, just is
Well,
for the
and
public's interest and ours. So
but a lease agreement wouldn't there be numbers associated with a lease agreement?
It would be funded through the enterprise fund budget, which it currently is. So the town meeting's approval has nothing to do with funding, except to understand why a 5-year agreement is more advantageous than a 3-year agreement.
Okay,
yeah, approving the budget approves the.
understand.
Yeah.
Okay, yep, that makes sense.
Similarly, the police department has equipment that is advantageous to have a 5-year lease. So that's the following article. So you'll hear from Chief Minardi at the budget summit on that one. Article 23 is a zoning bylaw amendment to allow for digital billboards. On January 6th, the planning board received a presentation from, I believe, a billboard company, just presenting about the advantages of this. As most of you are aware, we currently have agreements for the digital billboards that we have on Route 9. We get $10,000 a face. My understanding is that community, and that's an older agreement. My understanding now is that communities are getting upwards of $80,000 a face. So, so there's definitely, it's a revenue source that would go into the general fund and be estimated to reduce the levy.
So
And right now, isn't some of that funding covering the EDC?
No.
It's not. It used to
No.
be, right?
We had intended to have an EDC revolving account, but
Yeah,
that wasn't
okay.
approved.
Right.
Yeah.
So we had this come before the board, something before the town a couple of years ago, right? This was an article on the warrant a
this
couple
is
of years ago.
Mass Pike and
Mass Pike
495
This is
495.
different, though.
So, well,
didn't pass that
They
time.
did.
know,
it
that
was-
was going to be my
But
question.
it's
So-
similar.
it is similar.
Yeah.
I guess my question is, I thought it was a zoning bylaw change.
Isn't there, right?
That's what I thought it was last time. My question would be to Jenny. So I would like to get a presentation on this, and I'd like to specifically understand what is different in this language than what was voted against in the previous language.
Right.
Right? Is this all net new language? Is
And
there,
isn't there a kind of a time moratorium?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
we're within that?
No, I think I know that she is very aware that this came before and failed, so I believe that we're okay to move forward with it. She has already requested to be on your agenda for the 27th.
okay,
So,
terrific.
But that's a great point. What is
What's
different,
different?
from?
What's new? Because it's all.
So
if I
making
look
sure
at the,
she's aware of that.
right now, it's no bold strikeout. So this is all new language in here. And how does that compare to the new language that was proposed 2 years ago? Whatever it was.
Yep.
Article 24 is to amend the zoning map, and that's related to Research Drive. Just the-
Research.
Is that a project we saw before us?
Yes. Yeah.
Is that the Ferris development
Yes.
with the parking lot? Yep. Okay.
Article 25, I have here, I just noted it as a placeholder, but that's going to be the downtown zoning. So that got referred back to the planning board. Planning board asked questions from finance committee and select board about, what you were looking for in order to support it. We sent that memo on, and so they're completing that work. I think I just got it today, so I can add that in, the downtown zoning. And then Article 26 is a home rule petition that we received to provide legal voting rights for town citizens age 16 and 17. And so that we'll ask the proponent. I know that proponent's been working with our town moderator, and we'll ask.
This is a citizen's petition.
Yes, we'll ask them to come here.
So question, right? So we haven't heard back on our Fall Town warrant raising the requirement to 50 signatures.
No, not yet.
And I don't know if we expect to hear back by town meeting.
We don't expect that it will be in place for this time.
Okay. So I was curious how many signatures this one received, and if that came back, would they have to
Oh, no.
amend? Okay.
Yeah. And then just to note, I have a list going of some other things that I think might come up. Sustainable Westborough tomorrow night is considering an article for the specialized energy code. And so that, if they vote for it, would come to the warrant. The 250th Revolutionary Anniversary Committee has talked a little bit about potentially coming for a warrant article to fund the celebration that they're planning. But they have also received advice that they actually can fundraise, that type of committee. We've talked to town council, so they can fundraise. So they're also pursuing that. So I'm not sure if we'll have an article for
There
that.
goes my update.
So
Sorry.
That's fine.
yeah,
Time.
it would be helpful just to understand the nuance between this committee and others, because we've always been like, a town committee cannot.
But they could when they were the 300th committee, which is why I reached out to town council. So yeah, so I'll definitely share that.
Yeah.
The wastewater treatment plant, actually right after I completed this version, they sent me an article for a large project, which I think you've
Yeah, it's
brought
the
up
Headworks
before.
building. So yeah, they have their meeting tomorrow morning, so I'll get some updates on that as well.
So they would come before us.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Absolutely, I expect them to. And I'll make that point tomorrow.
And then I also got an article from the ATSC for a crosswalk at Ruggles, which I know Mark mentioned earlier today. But then I know DPW also said that they were working with them. So that will be on the warrant for your consideration, whether or not you want
And
to.
they also mentioned Ruggles is going to have significant work done.
Yeah. So
That's
I think
Timing of that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the only other things that we have on our radar that we're looking at is whether or not there'll be a need for an article to the transfer to the Affordable Housing Trust, because with the mitigation funds through that project, if we receive another payment, there might be an article for that. And then we're also looking at our ability to potentially rescind borrowing if there's ability to do that.
About 30 now.
That's it. That's all I have.
That's it? That's all?
Any questions, or I think we went through this with
Yeah.
ones we want to see. We'll see what comes out of our summit as well. We'll have time between closing the warrant to get those in front of us. Okay, any questions there?
Nope.
Okay, thank you, Christie. Let's move on to issues and correspondence of the select board. Mark, you're remote. I'm going to start with you.
Okay, despite my illness, I will move forward. I don't know where that echo's coming from.
We don't hear it. We don't hear it on our side. So
Oh, good news. So
Yeah.
January 15th is a meeting of the Friends of the Westborough Public Library, 6:00 p.m. January 19th, we have the Martin Luther King Jr. Community Celebration from 4:00 to 6:30 at Westborough High School. On the Friday, the 23rd, there's a blood drive at the Westborough Fire Department, 8 a.m. to 3 o'clock in honor of Gretel McNeil. And then Saturday, the 24th, we have the Chili Fest at St. Luke Parish Hall. On the Sunday, the 25th, there's a free walk, Tree ID in the Winter, sponsored by the Westborough Community Land Trust. And our town tree warden, Kyle Grendel, will be there. I'm not sure exactly where that is, unfortunately, but I believe you can get that from the Westborough, from the Land Trust website. And last, Mass Wildlife is gathering public input on Sunday hunting with crossbows and minimum setback distances for hunting. You can attend a Zoom meeting on January 27th or an in-person meeting on January 28th at 6 p.m. in Westborough. And I believe that's at the Mass Wildlife Building off Mill Street. Other than that, thank you for your patience with my illness.
great. Thank you, Mark. Shelley.
Yeah, just one update. The EDC had an off-cycle meeting specifically to talk about the small business grant eligibility guidelines and process. I think this year, as we went through that awarding, we realized there were some things that we can enhance around a better definition of eligibility and as well as process. So the committee is in the process of remaking some sausage, and we'll be continuing that process and hopefully approving that in the next meeting or two. The EDC awards grant, Christy already mentioned, January 30th. Hopefully select board members will be able to attend. It's the annual awards for various business categories. And thank you again to Westborough TV for all of its work to pull it together, as well as the EDC subcommittee of Karen Chapman, Dave Bagden, and of course our coordinator, Laura Crawford.
Thanks. Sean.
Sure. Let's see. So 250th anniversary committee has been meeting consistently. Last Monday and this Monday, I was able to attend yesterday's event where Christy gave them the good news that they could fundraise. And so that was very well received. Local businesses expect folks to be reaching out to you at some point in the near future. But also working on coordinating with other town departments and creating kind of a calendar of events that should be coming out. in the not too distant future. The Council on Aging met yesterday at 1 p.m. I was unable to attend. I will watch that meeting. It is taped by Westborough TV and provide an update at our next meeting. But I know that Alan Edinburgh was on the agenda to discuss the Affordable Housing Trust. So if folks are interested in that, I'm sure it was a fine presentation from Alan. And then finally, for events this Sunday at 3 p.m., the Houston Texans will be visiting the New England Patriots at Gillette.
You're taking us all.
Looking forward to that. Thank you.
All right, so just a belated update. I want to say thank you to our tree warden, Kyle Grandel, who came before the Sustainable Westborough in December, and he shared a lot of fantastic information with us. They've deployed an eco benefit tool with a grant from DCR, and they're now tracking. They've added 3,200 new trees to their tracking, and they're now up to well over 6,000 trees that they've inventoried across the town, representing over 9 million pounds of carbon storage throughout the community, and 1.9 million gallons of a year of runoff avoided as a result of those trees. They've also estimated there's approximately 30,000 shade trees in town. So they're doing a lot of work to continue to update that database and share that information. I believe you can go out to the DPW's website and look at that information directly. And
what was that again? I'm sorry.
What's that?
What was that last part about shade trees?
They have they've estimated 30,000 shade trees in town right now.
Okay, thank you.
So just wanted to share that information with the board. So thank you.
Great, thank you. I have nothing for this tonight. So with that, I would entertain a motion for executive session.
I'd be happy to help you with that. So I would move we enter into executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property at 9 East Main Street and off Chestnut Street if the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the board's negotiating position. Under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy session in preparation for negotiations and contract negotiations with non-union personnel, Todd Minardi. Under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A7, to act under the authority of the Select Board to approve executive session minutes of December 16th, 2025 AM session, December 16th, 2025 PM session, and January 6th, 2026.
Great, thank you. And I declare that a open meeting would have a detrimental effect on the board's negotiating position, and that we will not be returning to open session at the conclusion of this executive session. Is there a second for the motion?
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Roll call vote. Mark?
Silverberg, yes.
Milby?
Marshall, yes.
Keo, yes.
Welch, yes.
And Johnson, yes. Thank you to Westborough TV, as always, for live streaming and recording this. And we will adjourn the open session and go to executive session. Thank you.